liberty and justice for all.
The order of business of the City Council is as follows. The clerk will call the items listed on the agenda. Under public hearing, anyone wishing to speak on an item should come forward after the clerk reads that item. The council shall require any member of the public desiring to address the council to identify themselves, the name of an organization or group, including an address that you may be representing by such person or group, unless the address requirement is waived to protect the security of the individual. The applicant may then make one short rebuttal. Each speaker should begin by stating their name, address, organization, or group, and whether you are speaking in favor of or in opposition to the item. Testimony is limited to 5 minutes per speaker. After all public hearings, the council will vote on resolutions and items listed under third reading. On the second and last Mondays of the month immediately prior to adjournment, anyone may speak on any issue not on the agenda for that date nor planned for a future agenda. Will the clerk please call the first item of business?
The first item of business today for our council meeting Monday, June 13th, 2022 is a meeting notice. Due to the Juneteenth and Independence Day holidays, City Council will not meet on June 20th or July 4th of 2022. Next on our agenda is our Mayor's Award of Excellence.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the council. I'm so happy to be back before you once again, this time to present the Award of Excellence for March of 2022 to a team from the Lincoln City Libraries. This team includes librarian Victoria Clark, Library Service Associate Elizabeth Clayman, and former library employee Connor Anderson. They were nominated by the manager of the Walt branch, Jodine Glaseman, in the category of Valor for their efforts to ensure the safety of an elderly community member. So here's where the story begins. As the staff members were closing the Walt branch at 8 p.m. on February 3rd, a very cold night, they noticed that there was an elderly man sitting in the vestibule between the outside and the inside doors. And when that gentleman told Clayman that he was expecting a ride at 8:30 p.m., they really became concerned about him waiting that long in the temperatures that were below 10 degrees. After the building was locked, the library staff asked the man more questions, and they realized that he actually didn't know the name or the phone number or the address of the person who was coming to get him. So Vicki went back inside and contacted a service coordinator with Region 5 Services. And that individual was able to locate the person providing support for the gentleman, and they made an alternate plan to have the man picked up across the street at the Cooper YMCA. That man had told the support staff that the library closed at 9, so library staff made sure that all parties involved understood the library schedule to avoid any future confusion. Clayman and Anderson walked the man to the YMCA, and they made sure that he was safely inside waiting for his ride. And Glaseman praised the library staff members for working together after their regular work hours to ensure the physical safety of an elderly member of our community. Former employee Connor Anderson he's not actually technically eligible to receive the award anymore, but we do thank him for his service and involvement in this. And today, I would ask you to please join me in both thanking him, but also congratulating Liz Clayman and Vicki Clark for their hard work and commitment to the city of Lincoln. You two could stay standing right here. Pat Leach is going to say a few words.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you, Liz. And I want to recognize Connor's contributions as well. It is a joy to be here today. I would note that when I sent out a celebratory note to our whole staff today about this particular award, I noted that all of our staff would be people that I would trust in an emergency, both for being caring and for being competent. And when we think of the customer service that we provide, I just want to note that those are the things that we look for. We do kind of regular business every day, but I absolutely feel certain that if someone's in need, a library staff person is exactly who they should go to for help. And I also want to acknowledge the manager in this case, Jodine Glazeman, who oversees Walt Branch Library, for the atmosphere for customer service that she builds every day so that the staff who work there can do their best job every day. So just a moment of glory for these two, but I also want to use it to highlight the work of our staff overall. And I think this is an opportunity if Vicki or Liz wish to say anything.
Thank you, Pat. I'm deeply humbled by this because I feel that this is part of our job that we do, and didn't think twice about helping somebody like this who we needed to take care of, because like we say, the libraries are more than books. Libraries change lives. So that is truly a motto that we live on. Thank you. I'm very honored to have members of my family here today to share this. Thank you very much.
Can we wave to your family? Can we? Oh, there they are. Hi, guys.
Hi, family.
I just wanted to say thank you, and thank you to the mayor, and thank you to Jodine.
Do you have family here as well, or
Not
not
today.
today? Okay, wonderful. Well, let's congratulate them one more time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mayor.
They're going to head out for pictures. I'm going to
Okay.
stay, and then I'll join
Okay.
them in just a moment.
Very good. And congratulations again. Thank you for your service very much. Very, very much.
Okay, next on our agenda is our consent agenda, sections 1 and 2.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak on any of these items? Item number 1.
I believe this is on the consent agenda. I'm not actually looking at the consent agenda, but I understand I will have your consent, and I'm so pleased about that. So good afternoon once again. I am so pleased to be standing before you to introduce Lynn Heaton for your approval as the next Chief Financial Officer for the City of Lincoln and our next Director of the Finance Department. Lynn is currently the CFO for the Nebraska Department of Transportation, or NDOT, and he has 15 years of experience in government budgeting and finance. And when we sought the person to fill this really important position on our leadership team, we said that that person should be knowledgeable of governmental budgeting, best practices, and be progressive and solution-oriented in the management of public service, finance, and service delivery. Lynn is all of that and more. And his experience and skills will position the City of Lincoln to maintain its excellent financial status and to develop creative solutions to continue to provide critical services to our community members. Before taking his position at NDOT in 2018, Lynn served as the Deputy State Budget Administrator and a budget analyst in the Budget Division of the Nebraska Department of Administrative Services. And I'm just so thrilled to have him bring his expertise and experience to serve our residents. And he had a key role in facilitating the first of its kind financing of the South Beltway. And that just demonstrates the kind of innovative thinking that he's going to bring to our team and help us meet the challenges that we face going forward. And with that, I would ask for your support of my nomination of Lynn to serve as Chief Financial Officer for the City of Lincoln, and would hand it over to him to say a few words.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Chairwoman Ward and members of the council, I am truly honored to be here today and to have this opportunity to serve the people of the City of Lincoln. I just want to take a moment, if I could, introduce my wife, Jennifer, here in the third row is with me today. Also watching the live stream are my parents in Osmond, Nebraska, Glenn and Shirley Heaton. And also, since they're working today, watching the recording later will be our daughter Carly Helmick and our grandson Jack in Nevada, and our two younger daughters, Sydney and Alexi, who both live in Lincoln. So I've already met so many of the finance department team, and I'm really excited to join them and to join the mayor's cabinet. I look forward to visiting with each of you over the coming weeks and months. And please reach out anytime. I understand we're right across the hall from you, so we'll probably see you in the hallway occasionally. And so look forward to visiting. So Again, thank you, Mayor, for this opportunity. And thank you, Chairwoman Ward, and council members.
Thank you. Mr. Heaton, are there questions or comments for Lynn? So I have one.
Thank you.
So,
Well,
yes,
thank you very
we're glad
much.
you're here. So you may or may not remember before you slip away, we were in the Capitol halls together years and years ago.
I'm sorry, I don't
That's
remember.
good you don't remember. I'm actually relieved, but had to bring it up, didn't I?
We will chat some more. We'll have to.
All right.
Okay.
That's all right. Thank you very much. Congratulations and welcome. Right. Can we move on, Madam Clerk? Are there any other people that would like to speak on this item? Okay. Seeing none.
We can now vote on these items. Item 1A is approving Lynn Elwin Heaton as Finance Director, Chief Financial Officer, effective June 27th, 2022, introduced by Washington.
So moved. Second.
Seconded by Beckius. Please call the roll.
Raybold,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 1B is reappointment of Dr. Stacy Bleicher to the Lincoln Lancaster County Board of Health for a term to expire on April 15th, 2025, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Bowers. Please call the roll.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 1C is reappointment of Dr. Katie Garcia to the Lincoln Lancaster County Board of Health for a term to expire on April 15th, 2025, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Bowers. Please call the roll.
Bowers,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 1D is approving the 2022-2023 Joint Budget Committee funding recommendations, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by McGinnis. Please call the roll.
Beckius,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 1E is approving a contract between the City of Lincoln and Alfred Benish Company for an on-call construction engineering services task order agreement for the North 27th and Street Adaptive Signal Project, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Beckius. Please call the roll.
Bowers,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 1F is approving the on-call professional services task order agreement between the city and JEO Consulting Group, Inc. to provide preliminary engineering services for the Cotner Boulevard from O Street to Star Street Rehab Project, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second?
Seconded by Raybold. Please call the roll.
Raybold,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 1G is approving the on-call professional services task order agreement between the city and HDR Engineering, Inc. to provide environmental services for the Cotner Boulevard from O Street to Star Street Rehab Project, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second?
Seconded by Raybold. Please call the roll.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Okay. Sections 2, items 2A through 2F is introduced by Schob.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Washington. Please call the roll.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Okay. That concludes our consent agenda. We shall now move on to section 4, our public hearing liquor resolutions. I'll be calling items 4A, 4B, and 4C together. Item 4A is application of American Made Distillery, Inc., doing business as American Made Distillery for a Class C liquor license located at 100 North 12th Street, along for a Class Z liquor license located at the same location at 100 North 12th Street, and the related manager application of Michael Siciliano for American Made Distillery, Inc.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this item? Investigator Parker, please come forward. Or our applicant, actually. Great, thank you. Yes, please come on down. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Mike Siciliano.
I'm going to swear you in.
Sure.
Okay. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
Yeah, I do.
Thank you.
How you doing today? I'm just here to represent the company that we're going to be opening up in Lincoln. We make and distribute alcohol. It's called American Made products from Orlando originally. But we plan on making it here to distribute throughout just Nebraska plus the Midwest using local products, corn. It's all corn-based, so we're trying to represent the state with the local products. We're also going to introduce a chocolate rum and use a chocolate factory from the area, things like that. So our goal is to bring our products into the Midwest, representing Lincoln, Nebraska. Will be the labeling on all the products as we distribute, you know, not only here but throughout the Midwest and rest of the country eventually. So.
Very good, very good. Thank you. Any questions for our applicant?
No.
Any comments? Great.
That's good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Being here.
Next, I'll be calling item 4D, manager application of Harry L. Watson Jr. for Original Grata LLC, doing business OG Grata, located at 2755 Jamie Lane, Suite 15.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this item, item 4B? Okay. Madam Clerk, we can move on. Seeing none.
I'll be calling item 4E, application of Wine, Beer, and Spirits LLC, doing business as Wine, Beer, and Spirits, to expand its Class CG liquor license to an addition for an outdoor area measuring approximately 10 feet by 20 feet at 5220 North 27th Street.
Welcome.
Madam Chair, Mike Kelly, our Lincoln office is 625 South 14th, Suite 200. I'm with Kelly Plucker Law Firm, representing Bo Starkle, who is the owner of Wine, Beer, and Spirits. He is primarily a package place, but they have a small component of retail, and they'd like to add a small patio to that. And we're here for any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Questions?
I do. Thank you.
Councilwoman Washington.
Mr. Kelly, can you tell us a little bit about where the patio is placed?
You know, I don't have the picture right in front of me, but it's to my knowledge, it's right adjacent to the bar area. Would have to be.
Okay. All right, but out.
And it's very small.
Okay.
Again, I wouldn't recommend using it today, but on nice days, it's convenient.
Yeah. And do you have an outdoor patio at any of the other stores?
Yes, he does.
Okay. All right.
He does.
Thank you.
He's got several locations.
I noticed that.
Any other questions for our applicant? Mr. Kelly, or comments? Anyone else have any comments for this applicant? If none, seeing none. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you,
Kelly.
Madam Chair. Thank you, Council.
Yes.
Madam
Cons-
Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve these items. Should I wait for
Yeah,
the other
I think we
councilwoman?
could get Mr. Beckius to come back in, and maybe we could just do the first item. Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I ask that we then look at these items, A through D, separate
Yes,
from
that
the
would be
last?
great. Thank you.
Is that a motion, or should I still? Did you make a motion for that?
I just made a suggestion that we look at items A through D as one package and E separately.
I appreciate that. Madam Chair, seeing no one else coming forward, I'd like to move approval of items 4A through 4D.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilman Shob and seconded by Raybold. Could you please call the roll, Madam Clerk?
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion for approval of the remaining item 4E, please.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilman Shob and seconded by Councilwoman Raybold. Could you please call the vote?
Bowers,
Yes.
Beckius,
Abstain.
Raybold,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, can we please move on?
We can move on to section 5, our public hearing resolutions. I'll be calling item 5A, accepting and approving the report of new and pending claims against the city from May 16th through May 31st, 2022.
Is there anyone here that would like to address any items on the claims report? Item number 5A. I know we had some emails about this issue. Yes. Yes. Ms. Hager? Is that okay? Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. My name is Rachel Hager. I'll just go ahead and read my original statement that I submitted and then some additional thoughts that I have. On May 18th at 5:50 p.m., I was driving 20 to 25 miles per hour east on O Street when I drove over a large section of damaged brick road prior to entering the intersection of 13th and O Street. There was no way to avoid this hazard as it took up half the lane. There were no construction cones or signs over this area. My right front tire immediately went flat and was unrepairable due to sidewall damage. I do have some photos I wanted to share. You can either pass them around or use that.
Right there. Yep. In just 1 second.
So in that picture, you can see the bricks kind of strewn about everywhere, up on the curb and the sidewalk. This one, you get a good idea of how large the damage was. And then this one, you can see that the pothole takes up about half of the lane, so it's hard to get around it. So this was not an average pothole. Not only was there extensive damage with many brick corners exposed, it was in the heart of downtown on one of Lincoln's busiest streets. I know the city has had lots of issues with the brick road in this area. Many spots are already patched up, and scrolling through Uplink and SeeClickFix shows many reports of damaged brick roadway in this part of downtown. Since that's the case, I believe the city should more actively monitor the area so that this level of damage isn't left unattended. I would also like to point out that this damage was located near a crosswalk with bricks scattered along the curb and sidewalk, creating a hazard for pedestrians as well as motorists. I happened to be doing delivery work for Grubhub at the time that I hit this hole and was unable to continue working that evening. So in addition to paying for a new tire, I lost out on a night's worth of work. I understand that the city needs to receive reports on these kinds of issues, but the way the law is written isn't fair to the first person who encounters the issue. Because of the prominent location, excessive size with no room to get around the damaged area, and the city's knowledge of recurring issues with this section of brick roadway, I believe I should receive the reimbursement for the damage to my tire. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Hager. Are there questions or comments? Councilwoman Raybould.
I would like staff,
Sure.
city attorney to
Okay.
come up at the
Okay.
appropriate time.
All right. Any other questions for Ms. Hager before we hear from our city attorney or staff? All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Christie, could you address the council, please? Thank you.
Nancy Christie, City Attorney, 555 South 10th. This pothole, we were not aware of it until May 19th. Our records show that there was not any reports through the internet or called in, again, until May 19th, and then it was fixed that same day. And I believe her accident was May 18th, and so that's when the city was not aware of it beforehand.
Any questions, other questions for our city attorney? This time, Councilwoman Raybould.
I know Ms. Hager had mentioned that were on the website, there were several other comments about brick repairs along that corridor of other problems that have been known to the city.
And without knowing exactly what she is referencing, all I can tell you is that this specific area, the ClickFix records do not show that there was a complaint or report about this specific pothole again until May 19th. I have no doubt when she says that maybe there were complaints, generally about potholes or downtown in general. I'm not suggesting that that's untrue. I'm not aware of any complaints about the specific pothole until, again, May 19th, so. And that's, in the city, when it became aware of it, fixed it the same day.
Any other questions? Councilwoman Washington.
I just have one question. Mr. Christie, is the material that Ms. Heaton presented today the same material that was received in your office?
Yes, I believe. Yes, I believe so, and I don't, if she was to, I believe it's the same photo. I'm looking at a black and white photo, but I believe it was the same information that was presented to us, yes.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments for Mr. Christie? Yes, Councilman Bowers.
Okay, so I just want to, so on the uplink, there were no other reports on this 13th and O part?
Correct.
Okay.
Prior to, I mean, on May 19th there was, but.
Okay.
Is that all for you? Okay. Any other comments or questions for our city attorney? All right, this time. Thank you, Mr. Christie. Any other discussion on this item? Yes, please come forward, Roy.
Roy Helm. I identify with pronouns of he and him. I reside at 2750 South 13th Street, which is on Oto, Missouri, and Pawnee land. I think it's very disheartening that the city can't show a little more compassion to a citizen. I mean, had there been some prior reporting, maybe there would have been some signage or conage put out. But to her point, the first person to encounter a situation is going to be penalized because of any potential damage that they have to pay for themselves. And obviously, this is a situation where not only did she have to pay for repair of her car, she also lost an opportunity to work and income. So it's a double whammy. And I would like to think that in this situation that some compassion would be shown and that her claim would be supported. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Helm. Any questions before he gets too far away or discussion? Yes, Councilman Bowers.
I just have a question for Ms. Hager when she comes up for a rebuttal.
Okay, very good. Come on up again if you don't mind, Ms. Hager.
Were there, sorry.
No, go
were
ahead.
There, thank you.
Mhm.
Were there any, when you said that you saw that there was a list of reports, was there any that were on the specific area that you're talking about?
No, there's, in general, there's a lot of reports on the brick roadway on the stretch of O Street that has brick.
Gotcha,
But
okay.
there wasn't a specific one for 13th and O Street before my incident.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments from the council? Anyone from our audience? Okay, so how this will work is we have other items in this voting session to go through, and unless a council person moves to remove your item from the claim list, then we will vote on those when we go back to vote on the whole, on all of the items. So thank you very much. Okay, Madam Clerk, can we please move on?
I'll be calling item 5B, miscellaneous 22004, application of the Urban Development Director to declare the Coyote Fink redevelopment area generally located north of O Street between North 66th and North 70th Streets along the Mopac Trail blighted and substandard.
Madam Chair, members of the City Council, my name is Dallas McGee with the City Urban Development Department, 555 South 10th Street. I'm here to talk about the proposed blight study. I brought a map of the area. And this is the first step of 3 steps that you'll be asked to take for this project. The map extends from 70th Street on the east, west and northwest to 66th Street. It follows along the Mopac Trail and includes the land that was previously the Finke Gardens site. We're here today to ask you to declare this blighted and substandard. A blight study was conducted by Hannah Keelan this spring in April, and All 4 of the conditions that identified as substandard are met with this property, and 8 of the 12 conditions that are identified as blighted exist on the property. The Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend that this be declared blighted and substandard, and that will allow for the use of tax increment financing to be used as part of this development. We've begun discussions with the developer of the site, who proposes a mixed-use project with residential and commercial. It'll be a phased project, with the commercial being the first phase. I'm happy to answer any questions you would have. There are representatives of the developer here. Tyson Schlinkler and Andrew Willis are both here, and they can give you more information on what they are proposing. Be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. Any questions from the council? Any discussion? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing none, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to testify on this item?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the council. Andrew Willis, 233 South 13th Street, on behalf of the owner of this property. You saw from the map Dallas showed, I'll put up there again. This property, about 7 acres, it meets all the requirements of blight and substandard in the blight and substandard study. It presents a very unique situation and a challenge. Not only is it just the strange shape, the very difficult shape, the location between the Mopac Trail, Deadman's Run. I mean, there's a lot of issues here. There's a floodplain covering a substantial portion of it. There's a significant number of obstacles that make this blighted and substandard. This really truly is necessary as the first step to get to tax increment financing, which will be needed to develop this. And again, it meets all the criteria and does present a great opportunity, if so, to develop both a commercial piece and then some infill housing that really otherwise there's not much that can be done here. Nothing will be done, even though it abuts to the Mopac Trail. There's no plans to change any of that. That's a key feature of the area, and no plans to change anything dealing with the trail at all, but it will allow some development of that area that otherwise really is unusable. I'd be happy to answer any more specific questions you have.
Thank you. Any questions? Any comments? Right. Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else that would like to testify on this item? Nope. Anyone else? Okay. Very good. Seeing none, let's move on, please, Madam Clerk.
I'll be calling item 5C, approving a service agreement between the city on behalf of the Lincoln-Lancaster County Health Department and Bryan College of Health Sciences for their clinical training for public health nursing students for the term of September 1st, 2022 through August 31st, 2025.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this item? Okay, anyone? I see, well, nope. All right, seeing none, let's move on, Madam Clerk.
Item 5D, fiscal year 2022-23 annual action plan for HUD entitlement programs using community development block grants, home and emergency solution grant.
Hello. Hello. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the City Council. I'm Wynn Yermstead with the City's Urban Development Department, here to talk about the annual action plan. So this is a plan that we do every year. It is required by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. It includes how we intend to use Community Development Block Grant, Home, and Emergency Solutions grant funds over the following year. We are an entitlement city, which means that we just get these federal funds. We don't have to apply for them, but we do have to tell HUD how we intend to use them, so they can make sure that we're doing all the appropriate uses of these funding, these various funding sources. The document before you is an executive summary. The actual submission is not user-friendly. It's web-based, and when we translate it to Word, it's a little clunky, so we prepared the executive summary to hopefully make it easier for you and the public to get through it. So the Urban Development prepares the plan, and we administer these federal funds. We have had a public involvement process to get input on community needs. We don't consider this a one and done, so to speak, in terms of public involvement. This is something that we do all year long. We continue to meet with various groups, get input, talk with various groups, agencies, individuals throughout the community to truly try to identify what are the needs and how can we use these funds to help meet those needs. HUD's mandate includes 3 statutory goals that we have to use these funds for, and those are providing decent housing, a suitable living environment, and expanded economic opportunities, all primarily for low and moderate income people or in low and moderate income areas. We do this in 3 broad areas: housing, community development, and homelessness. The majority of our funds go to housing programs or to agencies that provide housing services. So about approximately $3.5 million of these funds, along with program income that we receive throughout the year, goes to housing. So the bulk of our funding is used for housing. Pages 5 and 6 of the executive summary identify the project areas. These are pretty much what we have been doing over the years. There isn't any significant changes there. Actual entitlements, or the funding, CDBG, Community Development Block Grant, is about $1.8 million. Home funds is $1.2, and an emergency shelter is about $162,000. Our CDBG took a hit this year. We received about $100,000 less than what we did last year. Home did increase though, and emergency shelter grant went down a little bit. Had a public comment period, also public information meeting, and as all of you, I'm sure, are very well aware that the overwhelming need that we continue to hear about is quality, affordable, accessible housing. And so that's our response, is to continue to provide the programming that we do to assist with housing. Much of our work in the following year will be continuing to implement strategies in the Affordable Housing Coordinated Action Plan. And with your approval here today, we will submit the action plan to HUD, and then the funds will be available to us on September 1st. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Comments? All right. Very good. Yes, Councilman McGinnis.
You said the total CDBG was 3.5?
No. So there's the entitlement that we receive, and then there's program income that we receive throughout the year. So between those sources, we end up spending about $3.5 million on housing. What we actually received this year was, or will be receiving this year, is about 1.8 in CDBG. CDBG is much broader. We can use it in other things, but home is the one that we're restricted just to housing. So between those 2 funding sources and with program income, that's where we get to the 3.5. Yes.
I know other communities use a lot of their CBDG for economic development and low income and working with small businesses, and we seem to do all of ours in housing, but it's been this way for the last, 10, 15 years. That it pretty much goes to housing. I'm not arguing with that. I'm just pointing that out, that it can be used for other opportunities.
It can, and we have in the past. I think what we came to realize is where we get the biggest impact is to use it more for housing and neighborhood projects, because there's so few funding sources for housing and neighborhood improvement projects that, whereas with economic development, and given the amount of our entitlement too, I think some cities have much larger cities have a higher entitlement, so they've got a little bit more flexibility with their funding.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Right. Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you
very much. Anyone else like to speak on this item? Anyone else want to speak on this item? Okay. Seeing none, let's move on.
Item 5E is approving the relinquishment agreement between the city and the Nebraska Department of Transportation regarding 9.18 mile segment of State Highway 2.
Liz Elliott, Director of Lincoln Transportation and Utilities, 555 South 10th. This is an agreement with NDOT. As part of the South Beltway project, Highway 2 is going to shift from where it is currently in South Lincoln to the South Beltway area. As part of that, as the normal NDOT state processes, this is a relinquishment agreement upon completion of the South Beltway, the portion that we currently know as Highway 72, geez. As we know as Highway 2, will become the city's responsibility. Currently, we have an agreement with NDOT where LTU does maintain and does the snow removal, those types of things. With this relinquishment, it just becomes another asset on our books that we will maintain. Again, nothing happens immediately with this relinquishment. It is upon completion of the South Beltway. So we will continue to remain in close contact and partnership with NDOT. We will also be working on messaging and working with the property owners and those who do business and live along Highway 2, so they are aware of the timing and when this will impact. It's kind of a coordinated city-wide process to get the relinquishment notification to the USPS, get messaging out. It's coordinated between planning, building and safety, and LTU. So more information on that to come. Once it is relinquished, it does go to become Nebraska Parkway. And again, that doesn't technically happen until it is officially relinquished and everything shifts for Highway 2 down to South Beltway. But I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you. Director Elliott, any questions? Councilwoman Washington.
Thank you very much, Director Elliott. I read through the agreement a couple of times, and I have a couple of questions, and I'm sure it's all good, but it's confusing to me. So if you could please explain the right-of-way ownership and also the future advertising and access control.
It is a unique position when we do these relinquishments with the state. The state, as part of these relinquishment agreements, still does retain some control over this, in particular some right-of-way improvements and the advertising along there. In talking, both Tim C. in the law department and myself have had conversations with NDOT to see if we could get rid of those, but because federal funding was invested, at least in the not so distant past, that there are still ties with the federal funding, that NDOT does have to maintain that control within right-of-way and the advertising. And I'm looking to Tim just to make sure I'm not missing anything. So that essentially, and because of that, it's not something we're able to remove from the agreement.
I have one specific question about the advertising. I certainly don't know what the state's rules are on roadside advertising, but I can imagine that they would be different than city rules on roadside advertising. And as we move into the future, like forever, if the state continues to hold a different set of policies about roadside advertising, is there an opportunity to negotiate with the state, not for them to relinquish, but for them to allow our policies to be in effect and theirs to step back?
Even now, whether it's Highway 2 or Cornhusker or any other state highway infrastructure that runs through our community, we work closely with NDOT, and for the most part, as long as the city's okay with it, NDOT typically is in agreement and hasn't been an issue. And I don't expect that to change. Basically, what their requirements are going to be the ceiling, and if we want to do something less than that, then we can do that and kind of set our own regulations in that case. But NDOT has been very easy to work with, and again, they're pretty flexible, knowing that it's within the city and their interest is minimal at that point.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Councilman McGinnis.
Did you say that they still will require access management, or will we still have to get permission from them?
We will technically have to get permission from them, but usually, more often than not, it's a quick phone call. It's nothing too time-consuming or complicated. Again, usually, as long as it fits within ours, and DOT signs off without too many concerns or questions. So I don't expect that to be a challenge.
Is there a timeline on that? I mean, at some point, is it forever? I mean,
on that, I might defer to Tim see if there's, I don't believe that there's really a timeline. It's my understanding that it is indefinitely,
Is it,
but I'm not 100%
yeah,
certain
so if it's tied to
that.
federal funds, does that burn off at some time?
Tim C. is Assistant City Attorney, 555 South 10th, not that I'm aware of. I'm not aware that those requirements go away, just like we've got other projects that were actually city projects where we want to relinquish just a sliver of property, and that requires a rather extensive process regardless of how long it's been since we did it, which can be a challenge because finding records from really old projects can be a challenge. So no, haven't found a circumstance in which there's some sort of timing out of those requirements. And again, as Liz said, these are state just, they won't even discuss that at this point in terms of negotiating. But there is, I would say in the statute, it does contemplate that if we need to renegotiate terms, we can do that in the future. So I think if there's something significant that came up, we could have that conversation with them.
Okay.
The good thing is we have a great partnership with NDOT, and
State's
it's
great to
usually
work
very easy to work with. And like I said, most of the time it's a quick conversation and there's no issues.
Very good. Other questions? Good?
Nope, fine.
Okay. Thank you both very much. All right, let's move on. Anyone else want to speak on this item? I apologize. Anyone else? Okay, very good. Can we move on, please, Madam Clerk?
I'll be calling item 5F, approving the updated fees scheduled for ambulance services during fiscal year 2022-2023.
Good afternoon, Council Chair and members of the council. I'm Dave Engler, the Fire Chief, 1801 Q Street, and this is our EMS Chief, Division Chief, Roger Bonine. We're here just to talk rather briefly about the increase in ambulance fees. The process is it initially has to go through the MSOA board, which it has. That's a 5% increase. Now it comes to council. I'd just like to remind everybody that our EMS system is enterprise funded, so no tax dollars go to it. So that covers personnel costs, equipment costs, and the ongoing training and insurance and everything associated with providing ambulance service. So it's vitally important that we keep up with the costs of running that service. And as we know, with inflation, we've seen some pretty substantial costs especially in the area of equipment and apparatus and such. So this 5% increase should keep us on track moving into the future. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to address them.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for our fire? All right.
Right, thank you.
Seeing none, thank you very much. Would anyone else like to speak on this item? Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, let's move on.
We can now vote on these items. Item 5A is accepting and approving the report of new and pending claims against the city for May 16th through May 31st, 2022, introduced by Washington.
Second?
Seconded by Beckius. Is there any discussion? Councilman Beckius.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to amend the claim of Clayton Schwartz to be removed from the list of denied claims, as the claimant has requested that he be heard at a later date.
Second.
Moved by Beckius and seconded by Raybold to amend. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Beckius?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
We can go back to the main motion. Could you please call the roll? Oh,
I'd like to make a motion.
oh yes, Councilman Bowers, I'm sorry.
I would like to make a motion to remove Ms. Hager's claim from the list, and I'll go into an explanation why after I get a second.
Second.
Thank you, Councilman McGinnis. Councilman Ward, if I can speak on this issue for a second or two. I did a little bit of looking stuff up on Uplink and the C-Click fix, and the city's right. There isn't this specific area had not been recognized as one that was in need of repair. But when I look at the ones that were tagged as potholes around it, I struggle with the difference between east, west, north, and south. So I'm not going to pretend like I know which direction's which, but there are about 4 or 5 different ones that talk about different directions that are in need of repair on that area. It seems like that they took place in 2019, which is before everything got quieter with COVID, and now that things are starting to ramp up again. I think for the amount that she's asking for and the fact that there have been previous reports around, I mean, I'm not talking about like on a different block, but like on the same intersection area, to me that causes enough question in my mind, and especially for the amount of money that she's requesting, I would feel comfortable approving her appeal. But that's just my thought, if anyone has any questions.
Is there any discussion on Councilman Bauer's amendment to remove Ms. Hager from the claims report? Any discussion? It's $177 and some cents, I believe is the amount. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Okay. Any discussion from the council? Okay. So we have a motion by Councilman Bowers and a second by McGinnis. Could you please call the roll?
It's the request to remove Ms. Hager's
Yes.
claim.
Correct.
The denied claim list.
Yes.
From the denied claim.
Is everyone clear on what we're voting on? Councilman Rapel?
I think council, your intention was to approve, remove and approve, correct?
Both at the
To
same time?
remove
Okay.
and approve.
Okay. Very good. Remove and approve while we're doing them. Thanks for the clarification. Are we all clear on what we're voting on? Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Please call the roll when you're ready.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Raybold,
No.
Washington,
No.
Schob,
Yes.
Beckius,
No.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried 4-3.
We need to vote on the main motion.
Okay. We can move on.
We have the main motion.
Main
Oh,
motion.
we do. That's right. Absolutely. Would you please call the roll?
McGinnis,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Item 5B is miscellaneous 22004, application of the Urban Development Director to declare the Coyote Finke redevelopment area generally located north of O Street between North 66th and North 70th Streets along the Mopac Trail blighted and substandard. Introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second?
Seconded by Raybold. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that they are so correct that this is such a unique piece of property. And it'd be good to have some good use put back to it. So I'm excited about having this. And I kind of go back a little ways. My father started his business out there on this corner. So been around that for a long time. I used to be way out in the city, in the edge of the city.
Sounds like you're old.
Now I am old. Okay.
Now we know. Very good. Any other discussion?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Please call the roll.
Bowers,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 5C is approving a service agreement between the city on behalf of the Lincoln Lancaster County Health Department and Bryan College of Health Sciences for clinical training for public health nursing students for the term of September 1st, 2022 through August 31st of 2025. Introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Beckius. Is there any discussion?
I would just offer
Yes,
a comment.
Councilwoman Washington.
I think this is a fantastic program, a great agreement between us and Bryan Health Services. We have such a large nursing shortage that this will be a wonderful program to have implemented. I'm glad we could find a way to help.
Very good. Thank you. Any other discussion?
Ditto.
That's right. Okay, very good. Please call the roll.
Beckius,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 5D is fiscal year 2022-23 annual action plan for HUD entitlement programs using community development block grants, home and emergency solution grants, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second?
Seconded by Beckius. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Raybold?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Beckius?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 5E is approving the relinquishment agreement between the city and the Nebraska Department of Transportation regarding a 9.18 mile segment of State Highway 2, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second?
Seconded by Beckius. Is there any discussion? Councilman McGinnis.
This is just another one step moving forward with getting our South Freeway done and getting this put back. I just want people to keep thinking Nebraska Parkway, instead of calling it Highway 2. It's going to be hard to do for a while, but
Forever.
yeah. Gonna have to put a big sign over the road, right?
Big sign. That's right. Very good. Thank you. Any other discussion? Councilwoman Raybold.
I think Councilman McGinnis is spot on. I think everyone is so excited to see a Nebraska Parkway minus all the trucks. So that'll be a really different traveling experience for all of us.
Thank you. Very good.
And I was just thinking, if you don't mind, one last comment. Though I am very excited to see the Nebraska Highway, I also know that all of those syllables will get, they will twist up our tongues just a bit. And so I'm just going to put out there right now that we call it knee-high.
You said it first.
I just wanted to go on the record.
Said it right here. All right.
Copyrighted.
Exactly. Please call the roll.
Okay, Washington?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Beckius?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 5F is approving the updated fee schedule for ambulance services during fiscal year 2022 through 2023, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second?
Seconded by Beckius. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Beckius?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Okay. That concludes our section 5. We move on to section 6, public hearing ordinances, second reading, and related resolutions. Item 6A is approving a master lease agreement between the city on behalf of Lincoln Fire and Rescue and Flex Financial, a division of Stryker Sales LLC, for the lease of equipment to be utilized by Lincoln Fire and Rescue for a 5-year term.
Welcome back.
Good afternoon. Roger Bonine, Division Chief of EMS for Lincoln Fire and Rescue. I'm here in support of this master lease agreement. We've had a long-standing contract with and relationship with Stryker Medical. These will include some of the items that we use: our cardiac monitor and defibrillators for cardiac arrest, our power load cots and power load systems that save firefighters, paramedics' backs, and some other equipment. Some of our equipment is at the end of its service life, and this will replace that. This is also a 0% loan or lease agreement for the equipment. So we support that. I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else like to speak on this item? Item 6A. Seeing none, let's please move on.
Item 6B is amending the pay schedule for the employee group whose classifications are assigned to the pay range prefixed by the letter W by creating the classifications of Learning and Organizational Development Division Leader and Human Resources Information System Division Leader.
Welcome.
Hi, Barb McIntyre, Human Resources, 555 South 10th Street, and I would like to just briefly talk about our Learning and Organizational Development Leader. We're excited to get this position created. It's really going to be someone who will work with our other areas of HR to create learning opportunities, do instructional design, figure out how do we connect with learners, which is different in today's day and age because a lot of that's done virtually. Create the programs really to build our city's professional capabilities. So we're excited to get this position added. The other position in HR is the Human Resources Information Systems Division Leader. This person will really lead our, what I'm calling our HRIS function within the department. And it's really going to look at our strategies and our roadmaps so we can get the most out of those very robust systems we have in HR. We have Oracle, which I know everybody's aware of, but we also have NeoGov, Wingswept, in addition to some other systems that we use that I'm not sure everybody even knows we have up there. So it's really to look at how do we use those and really enhance the functionality and the automation capabilities that are available to us. The final position, oh, did you read that?
I'll read into the record also item 6C is amending the pay schedule for the employee group whose classifications are assigned to the pay range prefixed by the letter C by creating the classification of audio-video analysis.
Yeah, so this position, the audio-video analyst, is a classification that's being created for the Lincoln Police Department, and it works to, I've got something blocking my screen here. To perform a variety of tasks related to forensic video and audio analysis in support of our criminal investigations and court proceedings. The classification will require possession of a certified forensic video analysis certification. So we are looking to create that also to support their work.
Very good. Any questions at all? Okay. Seeing none, thank you very much. Anyone else like to address these two items? Okay. Let's move on.
I'll be calling item 6D, text amendment 22001, request of Eating Enterprise West O LLC to amend Lincoln Municipal Code Chapter 27.72, Section 27.72060 to allow vehicle stacking for drive-in through facilities in the rear yard setback in B1, B3, H1, H2, and H3 zoning districts.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, council members. My name is Mike Eckert with Civil Design Group, 8535 Executive Woods Drive, Suite 200 here in Lincoln, Nebraska. Appearing today with this application on behalf of Eating Enterprises West O LLC, which is a subsidiary store owned by Runza. And so this particular text amendment started with a lot they own on West O Street, which ran from O Street to P Street, and they ended up having an interested party wanting to buy the northern half of it, and they'd abutted P Street, and in the process of doing the prelim plat and sizing that lot for their building, it came to our attention that the existing drive-through for that Runza facility would be in the rear yard setback. So we sat down with planning to discuss it, and it's an H3 district, which doesn't allow the use permit liberties of adjusting those things administratively. And so, and they felt like this was done quite a bit in those B2 and B5 districts, and so they were fully supportive of it, mainly in the respect that you can park in a rear yard in the H3 districts, but for some reason, a drive aisle was never allowed, even though you could park in it. And so the important conditions that they maintain in that idea is that there be landscape screening similar to the parking lot, and that this would not be permitted in a situation where the drive-through lane abuts a residential district. And so with those two caveats, I think they felt like there were enough discussions about this on other projects over the years that a text amendment was warranted. They handed the torch to Civil Design Group and Runza and said, why don't you guys run with this? We'll be in full support. And so the staff report was pretty straightforward, and I think they're comfortable with the conditions. We come to you with a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Department, and so would request your approval of this text amendment.
Thank you. Excuse me. Any questions or comments for Mr. Eckert? All right. Okay. Seeing none, thank you. Would anyone else like to comment on this item? Anyone else? Okay. Oh, Councilman McGinnis?
I have a quick question
yes.
for Director Carey.
Sure. Director Carey, could you please come forward?
David Carey, Director of the Planning Department.
Since the applicant just came forward to ask for this one, I guess, variation or on there is a B1 or B2 that you're, B3? H3. And then you added all these other districts at this time?
Correct.
I mean, and the reasoning was just because others are doing it, or?
We have heard that there's been a desire to be able to have this flexibility in these other districts, and it's more to be consistent as well, that the conditions in these other districts for this type of a use wouldn't be all that dissimilar from the H3. And again, as Mike brought up in his testimony, this does still protect the residential districts when they're adjacent. So that's why we're comfortable with this change for all these different districts.
Okay.
Councilwoman Washington?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director Carey, if we make this to more than the H3 district, if we broaden this out, how likely is it we're going to have the same situation we had last week, where we had a commercial district and we have a residential area next door and they have a drive-through? And it's adjacent.
Well, certainly by allowing this lessened setback, or allowing the stacking in the rear yard, I should say, in these different districts, we potentially could have that situation. But again, the requirement still would be that we would not have this allowed when the residential district is adjacent. So that's how the rule is being set up, so that there's clarity in that as well.
But it could be appealed, or a waiver could be asked for.
I think that the other part of this is that when we're dealing with, in the H3 in particular, and we're not using use districts here, there isn't an additional plan to allow for that. The B2 and the B5 district, for example, they have plans that come forward for approval.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more flexibility in those. So this is in those areas where there's smaller situations where further utilization of those properties for this purpose is what's being desired in some cases. Again, we are not allowing this when there's a residential district adjacent. So that is the rule that we will be following.
Any other questions? Councilwoman Washington, or you have others?
I guess I'm so bothered that this is, thank you, because you can see I was thinking hard. I'm so bothered that there is a waiver possible for B2 and B5. I mean, I think I understand the H and the I and the O. No, I'm sorry, I wasn't there. H and O's, but I mean, because I think we had the same situation and they got a waiver.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it a waiver. It's a plan review process for the B2 and B5.
All right,
And so we consider the whole site in that case. And those are very typically larger sites, so that you have more space to work with to plan out drive-throughs, so that it's not as impactful on other uses. So that's the thinking behind the way this is being proposed, as being allowing the drive-through in the rear yard for these districts.
All right.
Councilman Beckius.
Thank you. So, Director Carey, it's not so much that drive aisles are changing or cars are not transversing the same areas. It's whether or not a car can sit in that area for stacking purposes versus simply just drive through that area as is being done today.
Correct, because the drive aisles and the parking is already allowed in that setback.
Okay.
Yes, so the stacking for a drive-through is what the difference would be.
Right.
Correct.
Thank you, Director.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Good. Thank you, Director Carey.
Thank you.
Does anyone else choose to speak on this item? Or anyone else? All right. Seeing none, let's move on.
I'll be calling item 6E, text amendment 22003, request of Whitehead Oil Company to amend Lincoln Municipal Code Section 27.06.170, heavy commercial services use group to allow truck wash facilities as a permitted use in H4 zoning districts, and amend Section 27.63.470, planned services commercial pertaining to motor vehicle and or truck with facility to remove conditions related to vehicle stacking.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Meyer. I'm at 1128 Lincoln Mall, Suite 100, or Suite 300, excuse me. I'm an attorney with Rembolt Ledke Law Firm, and I'm appearing today on behalf of Whitehead Oil Company. The city is making efforts to minimize the H1 zoning district. And as a part of that effort, and upon the planning department's application, a significant area in the vicinity of North 56th and Arbor Road was rezoned recently from H1 to H4. And Whitehead Oil Company owns some properties in that area. And Whitehead was not opposed to the change of zone, but did request to work with the planning department on a text amendment to allow truck washes as a permitted use in H4 zoning district. And that is the amendment that is before you today. So currently, truck washes are permitted in H1. They are allowed by conditional use in H2 and H3, and by a special permit in the H4 district. And the text amendment before you was drafted in collaboration with the planning department. And this amendment both allows truck washes as a permitted use in H4, and it also eliminates the conditions for truck washes under the planned service commercial special permit, as these conditions are already covered by the city design standards. So it's just removing a redundancy. And this text amendment was heard before Planning Commission on the consent agenda on May 25th, and then was unanimously recommended for approval. And so we just want to go on the record and say thanks to the Planning Department for their willingness to work with us on this amendment. And I thank you for your consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilman Beckius?
Yes. Sarah, Ms. Meyer, hi. Would this not have been, was this not final action at Planning Commission? Or was this appealed? It must not have been final action.
I
at
don't
planning.
think so,
Okay,
no.
very
I don't
good.
think so.
Shaking his head
Okay.
no.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sorry.
No, you're fine.
Any other questions? All right. Seeing none, thank you very much, Ms. Meyer.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Are there any other persons who would like to speak on this item? All right. Seeing none, let's please move on.
I'll be calling item 6F, change of zone 22010, application of John Badami on behalf of Cadre Architect for a change from R7 residential to R7 residential with landmark overlay on the property generally located at 480 North 16th Street.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this item? I don't see anyone. Director Carey, do you want to speak to this? Would you? Could you?
Hook a brother up.
No. Thank you.
David Carey, Director of the Planning Department, 555 South 10th Street. On behalf of the applicant, I'll just briefly go through this. This was a unanimously approved change of zone under local landmark designation for the Chi Omega House, 480 North 16th Street. This is an area that was already it was a contributing property already in the Greek Row Historic District. This is allowing some more flexibility for them to do improvements for the structure, to bring it up to modern expectations. And this did go to the Historic Preservation Committee, also receiving approval there. And it's something that we recommend approval as far as you are concerned. So with that, I can try to answer some questions if you have any.
Questions? None? Right. Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Director Carey. Anyone else choose to speak on this item? All right. Seeing none, let's please move on.
I'll be calling item 6G, Street and Alley Vacation 22001, application of Parks and Recreation Department to vacate a portion of South 16th Street running through Rudge Park between Lake Street and Harrison Avenue along the additional unnamed right-of-way extending from Harrison Avenue to Perkins Boulevard, extending through Rudge Park generally located at South 16th Street from Lake Street to Harrison Ave.
Is there anyone that would like to speak on this item? Mr. Yost. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Council. J.J. Yost, Planning and Facilities Manager for the Parks and Recreation Department. Back in about 2016, we started working on a master plan with the various neighborhood associations surrounding the Irvingdale, Stransky, and Rudge Park complex or campus to develop kind of a comprehensive plan to make improvements to the park, all three parks over time, to make some renovation efforts and to make sure that they're complementary of one another in terms of what they offer in terms of recreational opportunities. That plan was completed and adopted by our Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. One of the items that was identified in that plan was this street vacation. Subsequently, we were able to get a land and water conservation grant that will provide approximately 50% of the funding to move ahead with the project that will make some major renovations in both Irvingdale Park and in Rudge Park. And as part of this project, we would like to proceed with this vacation of 16th Street. I have a couple images. Quickly, this is just an overhead view, an aerial view of the three-park complex that is Irvingdale Park to the east, Stransky Park in the center, and Rudge Park to the left or to the west on this image. The street vacation block is bisecting 16th Street, or excuse me, bisecting Rudge Park currently. Going to a blow-up specifically of Rudge Park, we can get a little closer look at that again. The street today runs north-south through the park. By vacating the street, it allows us to create a walking loop on the perimeter of the park that will be contiguous, and it provides a little more green space surrounding the proposed playground, which is kind of the yellow circular area there. And one final image, you may have something like this in your packet, but this shows the vacation of 16th Street running north-south, and then there is also a some additional right-of-way. There was never a street developed there, but at the same time, we'd like to clean up that additional right-of-way kind of going off to the north and east. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Yost? Councilwoman Raybould?
I just have a comment. I know that Parks and Recreation came out and presented a lot of the exciting plans for Irvingdale Park and continuation of incorporating Stransky Park and Rudge Park, and it's really exciting to see a lot of attention directed in this area. So I think the neighbors were really thoroughly happy and excited to see these really welcome changes, and it's exciting to see the playground equipment get upgraded and rehabbed, and people are very grateful.
Yeah, thank you. There are some much needed renovations happening with this project. We were able to conduct a public open house back in April in the park, and I think there is a lot of excitement. There's been people waiting patiently since this master planning was completed almost 5-6 years ago, waiting for this funding opportunity, and so we are glad to be able to move forward.
Councilman McGinnis?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Yost. Again, this is great that this is coming forward. Do we have any deadlines on the use of the grant, or?
Yeah, there's a 3-year time, and we're maybe about we're not quite a year into that. We've been working on the construction plan, so we couldn't start any design work until we got the notice to proceed on the federal grant. So again, we're probably somewhere in the 8 to 9 months into that 3-year window. If for some reason construction were held up or we were delayed for material deliveries or those kinds of things, it's not unusual to have to ask for an extension on these types of grants. Obviously prefer not to, and the neighborhood would prefer that we get on with it. But yeah, we're on a good timeline.
Yeah. We were reminiscing a little bit about all the uses of this park over the years, from the ice skating rinks to...
I knew you were going to mention ice skating, yeah.
Broom ball, broom ball.
Broom ball, yeah. It went on down there, but can't wait for the next stage of it.
Yeah. I don't think I want to know.
We're old enough, we have good...
I know.
They're dating themselves. Yeah,
that's right.
May I make one more comment, and actually a plug? I'd really like to put in a plug for the turtle that has been at Irvingdale Park. Many children, and probably including myself, have crawled all over that. And my recommendation is that it be relocated to Stransky Park, where there would be lots of children who would love to continue crawl all over it. It's a turtle, that's stone turtle.
Yes, and since we talked at the public open house, we have tried to figure out a way to incorporate, and we do intend to try to reuse or preserve the turtle and reset it. But we're going to do it in Irvingdale Park. We're going to keep it near its location. The one caveat, because I've had a couple calls from the neighborhood on that as well, and the one caveat I've said is, if while we're moving it and resetting it, if we encounter any structural issues that it starts to fall apart on us, which, given its age, that is, it's an old turtle. Given its age, that is a possibility, but we're going to do everything we can to reuse it in the park.
Would you be all right with that, Councilwoman? I mean, would you like them to call you in case it falls apart so you could say goodbye?
To pick up the pieces.
That would be nice.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay.
I'd be grateful for that opportunity.
Okay.
Thank you.
Moving right along. Good point on the turf. Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions? We're good. Okay, thank you very much. All right. Anyone else care to comment on this issue? Oh, Mr. Helm, okay. Seeing none, let's please move. Oh, Roy, Mr. Helm, please come forward.
Thank you. Roy Helm, use pronouns he and him, reside at 2750 South 13th Street, which is Oto, Missouri, and Ponca land. I'm one of those residents in the neighborhood that's really been looking forward to this project and the vacation at 16th Street. And in addition to improving our parks, it should also make 16th Street between Harrison and Van Dorn much safer, because people leaving Bryan West tend to proceed rather quickly down 16th Street on their way home or whatever. The concern I would have is what this might do with traffic on 14th Street, with people leaving the hospital turning left on 14th, or more people turning left onto 13th Street off of Lake. So I hope there will be some concern or attention given to that. But yeah, this is a very good project and a long time coming, and I know I'm looking forward to the addition, and I know my dogs will be excited to explore the new things. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Helm. Anyone else like to comment on this issue? Okay, seeing none, let's move on.
I'll be calling items 6H and 6I together. Comprehensive Plan Conformance 22004, application of the Urban Development Director to review as to conformance with the 2050 Lincoln-Lancaster Comprehensive Plan, a proposed new Bishop Heights redevelopment plan to develop retail space, office space, and multifamily dwelling units on 22.18 acres of land generally located at the Bishop Heights Shopping Center at the northeast corner of South 27th Street and Highway 2. And the related change of zone 22012, application of Olson Associates for a change of zone from R1 residential to B1 planned unit development to B1 local business to B1 planned unit development for 230 multifamily dwellings up to 115,000 square feet of commercial floor area, or a 150-room hotel and 95,000 square feet of commercial flooring area, with waivers on the property generally located at South 27th Street and Highway 2.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Dallas McGee with City Urban Development Department, 555 South 10th Street. This action is the second of 3 actions necessary to create a redevelopment agreement. This is the redevelopment plan, and this would enable the use of TIF on this property. The site is located on what we currently call Highway 2, and then north of Highway 2, east of 27th Street. The eastern border of the site is the Rock Island Trail. It's about a 22-acre site, and your action today will indicate that it is this redevelopment plan is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. The site, as mentioned, is proposed to be a mixed-use project, 230 residential units, as well as commercial property on a portion of the site. The Planning Commission voted unanimously to indicate that this plan is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, and we've begun discussions with the developer to put together a redevelopment agreement. Those discussions are underway, but pieces of those discussions are already in the works. The developers had discussions with residents in the surrounding neighborhoods, primarily concerning the bike trail and the relationship of this project to the trail. Danae Kalkowski is here representing the developer, and she will provide you more information on the actual development that's proposed. But I would like to answer any questions you have at this point.
Any questions for Dallas McGee? Seeing none?
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good
Welcome.
afternoon, members
Yeah.
of the council. Danae Kalkowski, Seacrest and Kalkowski Law Firm, 1128 Lincoln Mall, Suite 105. I got a whole team with me here today, and we're going high-tech PowerPoint, so. I'm appearing today on behalf of the development team. Also have Kent Seacrest, my partner, has been working a lot on the redevelopment components and some of the neighborhood outreach, and Aaron Bright from Olson Associates. Well, my slides are not advancing, so bear with me for a moment, please.
That's all right. It only works when we practice
Well,
with it.
we did have it all
Nicola,
set up here a little earlier, so.
Here comes
Oh, yeah.
our,
Is he?
Okay.
Yep.
here comes
Tech
our
help is on the
expert,
way.
yes. Help is on its way.
It worked really great at planning commission.
I know, I'm sure it did. Bo is very good.
It won't advance for me.
Here we can.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Bo.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. Appreciate it.
Need a breather, that's good, no worries.
So I'm appearing today on behalf of 3 developers. We have 3 developers working together on this project, and I think it helps make it a more exciting and vibrant project for the city. And one of those developers is Redevelopment, familiar name to us here in Lincoln, headquartered out of Arizona, but they have obviously the South Point Shopping Mall and the most recent expansion of Shields. And Scott Wagner and Joe Hakola with the Red team are here today and be able to answer any questions if we have some. EPC Real Estate Group is going to be the ones working on the apartments for us. They specialize in producing top quality luxury apartments in high quality locations. They're headquartered out of Kansas City. Terry O'Leary was with us at Planning Commission, but not able to be with us today. And then finally, the area north of Woods Boulevard is being developed by White Development. Tom White and Zach White, local developers who have over 40 years of experience in our community doing both residential and commercial development. All of you are pretty familiar with this site. It's an existing site all of us know well. At this point, 90% vacant. We have some outdated and non-efficient buildings and really not an exciting pedestrian experience for people walking by. The site has already been declared blighted and substandard by you. And so we're moving forward, as Dallas said, with the next steps, both the redevelopment plan and then also the change of zone for the B1 PUD today. The redevelopment plan was prepared by the City of Lincoln. And the redevelopment area is a little bit larger than what we're talking about for the PUD. Includes the adjacent right-of-way, adjacent trail, and some of the properties, the bank that is not necessarily included within the actual zoning action of the PUD. So the vision for the site really was to create a revitalized pedestrian-oriented neighborhood destination that provides a mix of uses and amenities for the nearby residents. There'll be demolition of the former Shopco building, the U.S. Bank branch on that piece north of Woods Boulevard, and then the 2711 Kuchera Drive buildings. Include construction of a new 5-story, 230-unit higher-end multifamily building. An additional mix of commercial uses throughout the site. We'd like to see a real mix of uses there, both on that property to the north and then on the red property. There'll be new connections made with the Rock Island and the Busalas trails. And then the existing Arby's will stay, but it'll be renovated, and then the Wells Fargo Bank remains. So we'll go through just each one of these sections a little bit more in detail. So red has the commercial area to the south of the site. Under the PUD, it would allow a mix of up to 70,000 square feet of commercial uses. If there was a potential for a 150-room hotel, then the amount of square footage on the retail would go down to 50,000 square feet. We have relocated connections to the Rock Island Trail and a new connection to the Busalas Trail. And again, that existing Arby's building is slated to be renovated. The EPC site plan, construction of the new 5-story, 230-unit multifamily building. And again, it also has, this site will have connections to the trail, which we're going to go into in detail in a little bit. We've got just a couple renderings for you here of the proposed building. The architectural renderings were taken to the Urban Design Committee last week and were approved with lots of compliments. The only condition is they needed to come back with their actual boards showing the materials that'll be used to construct the building. On the white property, they'll be demolishing that existing bank building. We've got a couple potential, either 1 or 2 building site plans here. Would allow up to 45,000 square feet of office and commercial uses. And as shown, no vehicular access to Kuchera Drive. And then we also are restricting the height along 100 feet south of Kuchera Drive to 35 feet, which is the same height that would be allowed in the residential neighborhood. Just a couple renderings of some potential buildings for the 1 or the 2 building concepts for the white property. And then I wanted to put the landscape plan up here. You're going to see it on a few more slides too, but just to point out maybe a couple items for you. Clear up there to the north along Kuchera Drive on the white property, you'll see that there's some existing trees that will remain, and then there's some extensive landscaping that will be added up there along the residential neighborhood. And then the other item just to draw your attention to is on the east side along the trail. Just to the east of the apartments, you can see there's a big mass of trees. And those are existing trees that exist there today on both sides of the trails and provide a really nice buffer between the residential neighborhood and the commercial development. Provide a lot of screening for the multifamily building. This shows the cross section to the north for Kuchera Drive. Again, you see the drive, you see the area between the sidewalk and the site. Will have additional landscaping added. And then we have a pretty good height differential for the commercial site, which sets 8 to 10 feet lower than the residential, which will provide a nice, again, screen from the residential to this commercial area. I wanted to hit traffic a little bit because that's been a concern of the neighbors. And we're talking about South 27th Street here, so traffic's always a concern. There was a traffic study completed by Olson that was reviewed by LTU. The site is already allowed it's zone B1, so it would allow already a mix of uses. So what the traffic study did was kind of compare what would be allowed by right on the site today versus what we're proposing in the PUD and in the redevelopment plan. And what they kind of found was, based upon the new proposed uses, there would be a small increase in traffic maybe in the morning AM peak hour. There would actually be less traffic in the evening and an overall decrease in the daily trips to the site. So in essence, the new site plan in comparison would equate to fewer turning movements in and out of the site than just developed with the straight B1 zoning. So there were no additional traffic improvements recommended for the project. And we can't talk about this site without talking about the adjacent trails, because we've got 2 really prominent Lincoln trails adjacent to this site, Rock Island on the east and the Busalas Trail on the south. That trail on the east has a really wide corridor with, again, some pretty extensive vegetation in that corridor. Just to give you a little bit of a picture, if you're walking on the trail to the north, again, you've got the extensive trees on both the east and the west side, and the trail sets down lower in elevation to the adjacent commercial. That's kind of looking to the east to the residential area, and you can see how that vegetation provides nice screening. And then that's looking as a little bit further south. You still have that vegetation on the east side. I also want to talk a little bit about balanced design for the site because people are familiar with this site. They have some pretty passionate feelings about it, right? It's in my neighborhood. I've driven by it for a lot of years. So there were a lot of comments that we got, and we received, you know, lots of inquiries about what was being proposed and lots of ideas on what should be done. And so early on, some of the trail advocates proposed a trail-oriented design for the site. One of the challenges is this PUD has, you know, over 1,400 lineal feet of frontage on trails, so it's pretty extensive. And it's really not marketable or practical for us to expect that there will only be buildings, decks, patios adjacent to that trail and no parking. The redeveloper worked hard with the city staff, and Planning Commission agreed to some PUD conditions adding some restrictions that we think provide a good balance. So on the furthest south lot that's adjacent to the trail, lot 5, there have been PUD conditions added that restrict lot 5 from any parking or drive-throughs adjacent to the trail. That was important. And then on the lot to the north, lot 4, where the building looks like it's been turned to rectangular shape, only allowing lot 4 to have parking stalls along with appropriate berming and landscaping on up to 50% of the trail frontage. So on this example of the site plan, the building was reoriented and turned so that you only have about half of the parking adjacent to the trail and the building adjacent to the remainder. I don't know if I'm able to point it out, Sandra, on here, if I've got a clicker. It'd be just south of the apartment area. No restrictions on the apartment building, just due to the existing tree mass and the topography that we have there. So this is an updated site plan that you're seeing. We believe this updated site plan helps provide a proper balance between some trail orientation, but yet also just acknowledging the reality of the site. While we have very heavily traveled trails along here, trail use is still just a small fraction of the amount of vehicular trips that go by this site. And so this site will continue to be served primarily by vehicular trips. So we have to balance those two in putting uses in here that will be able to be successful, which I think we all want, but still try to use that trail frontage as an amenity. So with the revised building orientations and proposed 4 trail access points, I think we believe that there are many safe and welcoming ways for trail users to enter into this development, to visit and enjoy the services that are going to be provided here. Now I'm going to hit real quickly some of the trail enhancements that are being proposed as part of the project. I talked about the quadruple trail access. So we've got a new access point directly to the north there, along the north side of the apartments. That will run right along that Woods Boulevard area and out to where the street light is. It also would connect to that trail that goes through the apartments to the north. Again, pointing out that existing tree mass. Then we have a new trail access point in the middle that would provide access directly to the apartment side and then also to the retail uses. Shows where there could potentially be some new landscaping and irrigation berms along the parking. Again, another trail access, final location to be determined kind of based upon the trailhead improvements that might get constructed down there at the convergence of the 2 trails. And then finally, the last new trail access is over there clear on the south side. They're going to be adding some shared trailhead parking stalls, and that access point would give direct access from the trail to those parking stalls. Bike racks will be placed at the southern 3 entry points. Be screening the trash dumpsters, improving the trail aesthetics with the nice buildings behind, professionally maintain some berms along the trail. This just shows along the kind of a cross-section along where the apartments are to the north. It shows how the trail sets a little bit lower. You've got the trees really on both sides of the trail. And then where the parking is will be some landscaping and berming to provide really some good screening to the trail from the apartment site. Be working on improving trail safety, and that's really because these two trails converge here. And you can see right here on our site is basically kind of a conceptual design so far of some new trailhead improvements that have been proposed potentially by Parks Department. Those 10 shared trailhead parking stalls will be added at the cost of the developer. Proposed drinking fountain. The overhead power lines along the trail will be removed as part of the project. And other trailhead amenities that between parks and other discussions. What I'm showing you here is a concept plan that's been prepared by Parks for the potential trailhead there for those two trails coming together. And some potential amenities that could be added. And then finally, you know, the developers have committed to encouraging tenants and other users to add patios and decks that take advantage of the access and adjacency to that trail network. A couple last things here. We have had significant neighborhood outreach with this project. We made presentations to the neighbors in the immediate vicinity of the site early on before submittal. Other presentations to the country club neighborhood directors and other interested neighbors. Met with neighborhood representatives of Bishop Square, Pedestrian and Trail Advisory Committee, and obviously responded to numerous phone calls and emails. We are requesting your approval of both of these items. We really want to thank, I think, the city staff for working through a lot of these issues with us, helping us come up with some conditions that allow us to have a balance, I believe, on the site plan. It took some compromises, I think, on both sides and modifications to the site plan that I think will result in a better product, you know, for the community. The redevelopment plan and the PUD are both in conformance with and support the goals and policies of the 2050 comp plan. Planning Commission recommended a finding of conformance with the comprehensive plan for the redevelopment plan unanimously. They also recommended conditional approval of the PUD with a vote of 7-0, including all the requested waivers per planning's recommendation. All of the conditions of approval proposed by the planning department were acceptable to the developer. We didn't have any amendments to what was proposed. And then finally, as I mentioned earlier, Urban Design Committee has approved the multifamily building, just subject to seeing the materials. So I think with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or go to my backup team too if you have any questions that I can't handle.
Council, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Councilman Beckius.
Yes, thank you very much. Wow, it looks great.
Thank you.
Question, I am familiar with Red and the White family, both as developers, excellent reputation. Could you tell me, though, the apartment developer, again, I apologize, I missed.
EPC.
EPC, and you said they're out of Kansas City?
Yes,
Okay.
Overland Park, I believe. I think this is their first Lincoln project. So they've got Lincoln projects in other parts of the country, several in Kansas area.
Okay.
They got a pretty extensive website, Tom.
Okay, perfect. Thank you today. Appreciate it.
Councilman Shob.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Kukowski, thank you for coming. There's something you said several times, and I really wanted to hear it one more time. Conforms to the comprehensive plan? Did you say that?
I said, yes, both the PUD and the redevelopment plan are in conformance with the comprehensive plan.
We usually see so many projects where we have to do things to help make it fit. It's rare that I hear one that is already in conformance when they got here.
Yeah, I think it was something crazy in the staff report for the redevelopment plan. There was 32 things that are in conformance. It was some crazy number of many ways why this redevelopment project conforms to the goals that are set out in our comp plan.
Thank you. This is exciting.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? None? All right, seeing none. Thank you very much. Anyone else care to comment on this item? Okay.
No. Sorry, Director Marvin, not you.
My name's Lauren Howe, and I've never done this before,
Doing
so
fine,
I
Lauren.
have no idea if there's anything I'm supposed to be doing other than stating my name. But this is actually my stomping ground, and I'm actually here for another project. I'm with UNMC. We're nursing students, and we're just here to learn about the process. But anyway, since it's my stomping ground, I did have a question. A lot of, I guess, I have kids, and I come through, so safety is a big issue when we're on like the Rock Island Trail, and I'm glad that that's been addressed. I think though the other issue that really bothers me is it seems like this is going to drum up a lot of traffic, and it's already a really busy intersection. And I guess I would love to learn as time goes on how that's going to be addressed, because I just don't. It's already busy now, and I know, and I forget the name of the new highway being built, and what is it called?
We all forget.
Yeah, I see the traffic all the time. I mean, or the construction going on. But anyway, so maybe once that's completed, it will help, because there's a lot of trucks that go through. But I think that would be, in my mind, a safety concern. I know that I often get on Pioneers, and I'm scooting onto 27th or onto Highway 2, and sometimes having to cut over a couple of lanes just to turn onto 27th. But it backs up, and I don't know. At first, in fact, I was just there the other day because I had to go to Wells Fargo, and I was thinking about how everything looked very decrepit. So I'm glad that there's been plans, but I was just thinking that a few new stores would be great, but when you include like apartments or a motel where you're going to have that daily traffic of people coming and going at the beginning and the end of the day, that's going to drum up a whole lot of extra traffic in my mind. But anyway, I just think that, I don't know, I think that's a concern that we should see through and make sure that gets addressed. So anyway, I feel like I'm coming at the back end, so maybe it's a little too late to throw in comments, but I just thought that was kind of a safety concern for everyone going through.
We
So,
appreciate
thank
your
you.
testimony, and Ms. Kalkowski will have an opportunity to close. So
Okay.
we'll see if there's other comments, and then she may want to address your concerns. So thank you very much for testifying. I don't know, we got your address, we got your name, but would you mind leaving your address as well?
Address, Lauren Howe,
Uh-huh.
and my address is 3220 South Gate Circle,
Okay,
and that's Lincoln, Nebraska.
thank you. You did great. Are there others that would like to comment on this item that are here today? Anybody else? All right. Where did Danae go? I don't know.
Danae's
Oh,
right in
there
front.
you are. See, I can't see you. Would you like to close on your wonderful PowerPoint
I would love to
presentation?
close.
Okay, thank you. I knew you hadn't gone far.
No, hiding behind the computer. Traffic, it is an issue on South 27th Street. The community made the decision a long time ago and has confirmed that decision in multiple comprehensive plan to keep, South 27th Street as a 3-lane roadway and not widen it. And there's a balance to that, right? And there's a cost to that. When you have an active and vibrant city that's growing and you have a roadway that stays the same, you're going to have traffic. And so we do have the traffic signal at Woods Boulevard, which helps to create some breaks in people trying to get in and out. We do have the South Beltway coming, which we all, I think, in the community, as earlier stated, hope will reduce the truck traffic on Highway 2 and some of the congestion maybe at that intersection. So I think we're just dealing with an existing situation, and there's not a lot, I think, that can be done at this stage to make it better, other than to have a site that works nicely, that you can have pedestrian and vehicular traffic entering and exiting. But we're working within a built environment, and we're working within community decisions that were made to keep it that way.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Appreciate it. Okay,
Right.
I think we can move on, Madam Clerk, when you're ready.
I'll call items 6J, 6K, and 6L together. Approving the Instinct Project redevelopment agreement between the city and the MIA Industries, Inc. for the property generally located south and west of intersection of 32nd Street and West O Street, and the related fiscal year 21-22 CIP to authorize and appropriate $3,607,264,000 in tax increment financing for the Instinct redevelopment project, and the related tax allocation bonds for the Instinct redevelopment project.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Dallas McGee with the City Urban Development Department, 555 South 10th Street. This project is in the third phase of the redevelopment agreement that comes before you to enable the use of tax increment financing. The property is located on the south side of West O Street and on the west side of Southwest 32nd Street. There's an existing facility that's there today. This will be a significant expansion of that facility. And if you notice the project area, it does include a long stretch of O Street, which I will explain in a moment. But I think that's something that we've had discussions with the developer, and there's certainly agreement on including that. Phase 1 was completed in 2017 when the company was known as Nature's Variety. They've since changed their name to Instinct. Phase 2 will retain 100 existing jobs and add another 150 jobs to the company. This will be done through consolidation of other sites and expansion on this site. The West O redevelopment plan was amended in October of last year to include this redevelopment project. The redevelopment agreement for this phase 2 operations will include about 250,000 square feet of expansion and an investment of approximately $190 million. As I indicated, this is the third piece of information that'll be coming to you on this project, and it is the actual agreement itself. As we develop an agreement, one of the key things that we address is how TIF will be used to assist in the development and to assist in meeting city needs as well. I've identified that exhibit that's part of the redevelopment agreement, and I'll go over and highlight some of the uses that we've identified for TIF. They would include, first of all, $300,000 that the city will designate to assist in the West O Bike Trail. That's the trail that will run all the way from Southwest 27th to Southwest 40th. That explains the long stretch of O Street that's included in the project area. Then there would be a $393,000 that's proposed to assist in energy enhancements above and beyond what the city would normally require. This building will be built to LEED standards, which is a difficult standard to achieve, but the developer has made a commitment to do that. And they'll actually be spending far more than the $393,000 to address those LEED standards. But we're assisting with $393,000 of TIF to help make that possible. There will be $1,460,000 that will assist in the site acquisition, and $1,400,000 will assist with site preparation. With your approval, the plans then will be adopted and the redevelopment agreement will be finalized, and the developer hopes to begin construction later this year. Here today is Andrew Willis, who represents the developer, and he can provide more information on the project, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for Dallas? Councilwoman Washington?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Mr. McGee. Can you tell me, has Instinct set the level of LEED that they're going to try for?
Yes, they have identified that, and I'll let Andrew explain that. It's very difficult for an industrial building to achieve the highest level, but they are attempting to achieve the next highest level. And Andrew can explain that to you better than I can.
Other questions? I have just a comment, and probably more appropriate now than with Andrew, but I don't know if all the council received this email, but I did from the Westow Business Association, which I know Ernie Castillo is an active representative of, but they're very much in support of the project, as you probably know as well. And the new president is Carl Jensvold out on Priced Right Auto Sales, so I know they've worked a lot with Ernie as well, so that's in the record with the clerk, but we got that later this morning. So
They've indicated support, and they've been active all along in promoting redevelopment along Westow Street, and this is certainly a key piece of that.
Right. So thank you for that. Thank you for your,
Thank you.
for your presentation. Oh, Councilman McGinnis.
I have one quick question for Dallas. I think the applicant's going to ask us to move forward on voting on the redevelopment agreement. Do you feel like it's pretty well done and ready to go at this point?
It is done and ready to go from our perspective, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Andrew Willis, 233 South 13th Street. Yeah, so the Instinct redevelopment project, it's been, you've seen it in a couple of different pieces, even last fall with the change of zone, the replatting, and the redevelopment plan, and so we're finally at the redevelopment agreement. Again, this is, to reiterate a little what Dallas said, consolidates operations and has a major expansion. Fully built out, 250,000 square feet. It's actually going to be built in, I mean, this is, he was calling phase 2, but really it's going to be built in 2 phases, I'm going to call them, just for, so I don't get confused. But initially, immediately, the idea is they want to start immediately on about 81,000 square feet that would be built out starting immediately. And just to give you kind of an idea of what that looks like, I'll put a site plan first. And then once that comes up, this is the freeze-dry facility portion that they really need to get started on right away. So that's this 81,000 square feet. And then, so that would be construction starting right away, getting done by October of next year is the goal. Phase 2 of this phase, I guess, would be the remainder of the 250,000 square feet, which connects everything and puts everything together. So they're going to build really the connection between the existing buildings and then that freeze-dry facility. That includes more warehousing, manufacturing, office space, and then so fully built out, that would be the 250,000 square feet. Again, $190 million overall. That first piece, that freeze-dry facility, is about $90 million. But again, $190 million overall. That phase 2, or the connection of it all, the hope is to get it started as early as next spring 2023. There's just financially, and just they break it up like this, it makes more sense for them, but that's the goal. It might be a little later than that, but right now they're proceeding to try to get it done and started spring 23. Couple of other notes, I guess. I can leave that up. It's on the TIF uses, again, $300,000 towards the bike trail. That will be across the street on O Street, but again, helping to make that connection to the bike trail that Dallas discussed. The energy enhancements, so there's $390,000 roughly in TIF, and they've identified some specific pieces of energy efficiency equipment that are really going to reduce and control the amount of energy used. I mean, air compressor, these variable frequency drives for all, because they have obviously a lot of refrigeration, a lot of energy use, so they can reduce that significantly with some of these this equipment. But in the bigger picture, this would be in the bigger picture of LEED. The goal is to get LEED Silver certification. It is difficult under LEED certification for an industrial building to get. This is a commitment of the company that they want this to be LEED certified. There's less than 10 pet food manufacturing plants in the United States that are LEED certified. So this would be one of those. It will hit LEED it'll hit LEED status no matter what, but they're still trying to get to that higher silver certification. They're still working on that. The overall cost of LEED certification is above $5 million that they're spending to get this LEED certified. So while there's $390,000 in energy enhancements, the real cost of LEED is more than $5 million. Just to go through all that certification and the requirements. Let's see, what else do I need to hit on? Again, yeah, this really is the consolidation of facilities. It will really be great for the company. It will be, it will reduce traffic from their other facilities across town, so it will really be beneficial for the, traffic across the community. Maintaining the 100 jobs here and adding about 150 through this consolidation and expansion. And again, this is raw pet food manufacturing, so it's not, there's no cooking, no fermentation. As far as industrial buildings go, it's clean, very little noise, no cooking, no fermentation, no odors. So it really is a great industrial neighbor and a great industrial building to have. And it's a large and significant expansion. Instinct is excited and ready to go. And again, part of excited and ready to go is that's why we've made the request, because the redevelopment agreement itself is a resolution and not the ordinance that requires the third reading. Knowing that piece would still come, I would make the request that you act on the redevelopment agreement separately today, if you're willing. It really helps them out from getting their project moving, getting their final approvals, getting financing, get everything lined up. It really does, even particularly with a couple of weeks off and the Juneteenth holiday, it really does speed them up quite a bit. With that, I'm happy to answer any more questions about the project.
Any questions for Andrew? Questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's move on, Madam Clerk.
I'll be calling item 6M, approving the amended lease agreement between the City, Lancaster County, and District Energy Corporation to expand the leased area for a term of 20 years.
We have Mr. Levy here on this item.
Yay.
Welcome.
Welcome. Good afternoon, good evening, Madam Chair and council members. David Levy, Baird Home Law Firm, 625 South 14th Street, Lincoln, on behalf of District Energy Corporation. The item before you is a request to amend an existing lease for some property behind me here at 9th and K Street that houses equipment that DEC uses to heat and cool this building. That lease was originally entered into in 1990. It was a 20-year lease at that time, continued on since 2010 as a year-to-year lease. The request today is to add a new 20-year term to that lease, and also to add about 5,000 square feet to the existing approximately 12,000 square feet that is currently leased. That addition would allow for additional ice storage equipment. Kind of ironic to be here on this very hot day making that request. Really pretty straightforward. The one other request is to respectfully request that the council waive the third reading of this ordinance and vote on this item today. DEC has a contractor ready to go. The project takes about a month, and that contractor needs to be done by July 15th. As you heard before, and as I'm sure you know, there is no council meeting next week, so it would be 2 weeks before that third reading and vote on this item. It would be very helpful to the project. Contractors are difficult to get these days, and they are ready to start if the council is willing to waive that third reading and vote today. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Levy? No questions?
Nope.
Yes, Councilman Bowers.
If there's no other questions or discussion, I'd like to make a motion to waive the third reading for Mr. Levy's item today.
It's been moved and seconded by Washington. Is there any discussion? Councilman McGinnis?
Yeah, I guess I should have paid more attention to this ahead of time if we were going to go straight to a vote. I was just wondering about how many parking stalls that we're going to lose for the Public Building Commission. I didn't know. I haven't had a chance to look at it. And at what point could this be unwound? And I'm trying to figure out how, because it is a public interlocal between governmental agencies, is that correct?
That is correct. DEC is an entity, an interlocal entity created under the Interlocal Cooperation Act.
Okay, so okay.
That's a good question, yeah.
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 I'm just wondering how, if something went, we decided we were no longer gonna use the DEC, then how do we unwind the DEC, I guess would be one question. Because this is one of many locations that this corporation has. It's a public corporation. Okay.
Councilman, your question or thought may be bigger than this, but in the proposed amended lease, it says this amended lease shall remain in effect for 20 years and shall thereafter continue from year to year, subject to the right of either party to terminate the same on 6 months.
That's
written
after
notice.
20 years?
Correct.
So
That's
the
why I
first
read
20
that.
you're pretty solid.
First 20 is solid, that's correct.
Okay.
And DEC is going to spend funds, of course, to build significant improvements on the site, hence the request for 20 years of certainty and then year to year thereafter.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Councilman McGinnis? You satisfied? Councilwoman Washington?
I would just ask one clarifying question,
Sure.
Mr. Levy. So the original lease was for 20 years from 90 to 10?
Correct.
2010? And so we've been operating, or you've been, we, the city.
DEC, yeah.
DEC has been operating year to year for the last 12 years?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Other questions for Mr. Levy? Okay, seeing none. Thank you for that. We have a motion, and we did have a second, but I don't recall who's.
I seconded.
Thank you, Councilwoman Washington. First, I'm sorry, Councilwoman Raybold.
I have a question for legal, if that is the correct process. Typically, don't we have to suspend the rules first on this? And I think that's what the request was, to waive.
We have another one too as well. I've forgotten, so that's a good question.
Yes, I think we would, I think the request is to suspend the rules.
Okay.
I don't recall exactly how you framed the motion.
Waive third reading to it.
Looks like,
Right.
Mr. Levy?
I also need clarification on the motion.
All right.
I don't mean to overstep, but yes, that's my fault. I should have said or requested that the council suspend the rules, waive the third reading and vote today. So I apologize. I didn't spell out my request fully enough.
I will make that motion then to suspend the rules and waive third reading.
And
I can second that.
Thanks.
This is all friendlily done.
could we tack on to that to suspend the rules for item 22R-240 as well?
Yep, that was the plan. So that way we can keep it neat and clean. We'll do Mr. Levy's first, and then we'll move on to item 6J after that to keep it separated out.
Can they be,
And
go ahead.
So, yes, and I think it makes sense to do them separate, and I actually think the request on 6J, that is actually a resolution, right? And so we don't actually need to suspend the rules on that. They just typically follow with the the related ordinances, and so we usually just continue. So we don't need to waive the rules, we just need to vote on that.
Okay, so first we will do
Yes, do them
Councilman Bowers.
separately.
Okay, separately.
Yes.
We have a motion from Councilman Bowers and a second by Councilwoman Washington to suspend the rules and vote on item 6L.
6M.
Today. We're gonna handle them separately. Councilman Shob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, Mr. Christie, you just got seated. So is that 2 votes, 1 to suspend and then 1 to approve?
He amended his motion.
Oh.
But, well, we may need to break them out. I don't know.
No, they don't.
Well, I think he's asking to suspend the rules and vote today,
All
right?
in
That's one
That is
motion.
the motion.
One motion.
I think we can do it in one I think we've done it in one
So-
motion before.
So a yes vote would be to suspend and to approve.
Correct.
Well, no, sorry, yes,
Yeah.
we're moving to suspend the rules, vote on that,
Yeah.
yes,
Then we come back and vote on.
correct,
Gotcha.
yes.
But it's actually 2 motions.
First, we vote to suspend the rules and then vote on that, and then if
Then a motion
that
to-
passes, then you would
Okay.
vote to approve. If it fails, then we move on,
Everyone clear?
and that's how we've done it in the
Clear as
past, I'm
mud.
sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a procedural question.
Okay.
After we make the the motion and the vote for the suspension of rules, we'll then vote on voting for item 6M. Will we still have a main motion, like to vote on that as amended? Or am I following that incorrectly?
What I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stay right here and we're gonna take the vote on the motion to suspend the rules.
And then come back.
Yep, I'm gonna stay right here.
Thank you.
Okay. Madam Clerk, would you please call the motion on the vote to suspend the rules?
Raybold,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you.
And now we can vote.
Now we're going to, Madam Clerk, would you please call the vote on the motion to approve item 6M?
Okay. I will still need to read it into the record
Yes.
and then have a first and a second before I call the vote.
Correct.
Correct? Okay.
Yeah, right.
Item 6M, approving the amended lease agreement between the City of Lancaster County and District Energy Corporation, DEC, to expand the leased area for a term of 20 years, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second.
It's been seconded by Beckius. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll? Is there any further discussion, first of all? Okay. Please call the roll.
Raybold,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
McGinnis,
No.
Bowers.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-1.
Great. Now, yes, Councilman Bowers.
Madam Chair, I'd also like to take care of item 6J, knowing that it's usually a resolution and it just follows, usually follows the process. If we could go ahead and vote on that today, I would make a motion that we do that.
Second.
Seconded by McGinnis. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll? Any further discussion? I'm sorry. Okay.
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
I did not vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ward,
Yes.
7-0.
I think we do.
Thank you, Mr. Christie.
Thank you, Madam Clerk and Mr. Christie, for walking us through that. Okay, we are at a 2-hour plus mark. We've had a request for a break before we finish our meeting. So could we please reconvene in 10 minutes at 5:25?
For section 7, right?
Yes, thank you. Okay, the city council will reconvene. And Madam Clerk, if you could please carry on, that would be great.
Okay, we'll move on to our ordinance's third reading and related resolutions. Item 7A, approving the Cotswold Building Redevelopment Agreement between Cotswold Management LLC and the city relating to the redevelopment of property generally located at 311 South 7th Street and adjacent rights-of-way and public property in downtown Lincoln, introduced by Show.
So moved.
It's been seconded by Beckius. Is there any discussion?
Good thing.
Yeah, an amazing thing.
All right.
We need more of these.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Raybold,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 7B is amending the fiscal year 2021-22 CIP to authorize and appropriate $3,304,792 in TIP funds for the Cotswold Building Redevelopment Project, introduced by Shob.
So moved.
Second?
It's been seconded by Raybold. Is there any discussion on this item? Or, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Raybold,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 7C is authorizing the issuance of tax allocation bonds for the Cotswold Building Redevelopment Project in amount not to exceed $3,304,792, introduced by Show.
So moved.
Second?
Seconded by Beckius. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 7D is change of zone 15021A, application of Senior Foundation VA Vision and Victory Park LLC to amend the Victory Park PUD to increase allowable building height from 2 stories to 3 stories up to 50 feet for multifamily structures and to adjust the lot layout for further platting with associated waivers on property generally located at 600 South 70th Street, introduced by Show.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by McGinnis. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Councilwoman Washington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say that this project has been long time in coming. It's something that we've all been looking forward to, and I really appreciate the work that they've done up until this last moment where I realized they're asking for a significant height waiver and they did not talk to the neighbors. I wish they had spoken to the neighbors. It's not enough for me to vote it down, but I wish they had gone and taken that extra step.
Is there any other further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Okay. Before we move on to item number 8, and we're ready to do that. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Correct. We just concluded section 7. We're now in section 8, reconsideration due to sufficient petition signatures.
I just want to, before our clerk reads item 8A, just remind those listening and our council that we're not in a public hearing for these 2 items, 8A and 8B. We're in a voting session only. Is that correct, Mr. City Attorney? And maybe I should have you brief the audience and the council, and I would also remind my colleagues we're in a position to make comments, a comment on our votes, but not to debate one another. And other than that, please, go ahead.
If I may, I just thought I would say something briefly. This is not something that happens all the time. And I just want to advise everyone that this language, reconsideration due to sufficient petition signatures, is actually language from a previous council referendum that occurred in 2004. So we do have some precedent for you to follow, if you will. But again, the language is from that previous council agenda. It was essentially in the same place, meaning after the public hearing was concluded. The language that says council must repeal this ordinance in its entirety or place on the ballot for vote of the citizens of Lincoln. Council must also select a date for a special election or a general city election. That is also language that is from the previous 2004 council hearing and council agenda. That is also language from the charter. It is not meant as necessarily a direction to the council. It is language from the charter, and it is language that was used before when the city council was in this exact position before with a referendum. So just wanted to provide information to the council with respect to that. Be happy to, as always, answer any questions.
Any other questions for our city attorney before we have the clerk read in item 8A at all? Mr. Shob.
I do have, thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have, so we haven't read the articles in. Does that make a difference on when we asked you questions about this? I have, say I wish to support one and not support another. And the language suggests if I don't support one, then I have to select a date. Is now the time to ask that question, or should we wait till after the thing is read into the, that's my first question.
I think I think it probably makes sense how we usually handle these, is that it'll be read into the record and then discussion on it, and then I can.
Does that help?
It was very
Councilman Shob?
helpful, thank
Okay,
you.
good. Any other
Stay up here.
questions? That'd be a great thing if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay, don't go too far away. Okay, very good. Okay, well, given that,
End of the, read
all
the
right,
motion.
sure. Okay. Madam Clerk, would you please read item 8A and proceed?
Amending Title 11 of the Lincoln Municipal Code, Equity Opportunity, in Chapter 2.76 of the Lincoln Municipal Code, the city's personnel rules and regulations to prohibit discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity. Council must repeal this ordinance 19711 passed on May 14th, 2012 in its entirety or place on the ballot for vote of the citizens of Lincoln. Council must also select a date for a special election or general city election.
So may I just remind, as our city attorney just reminded all of us, this is item 8A. This was passed and voted on by a council that none of us served on in 2012. So that is what we're voting on. And
So
yes.
moved.
Okay. And Mr. McGinnis, did you want to?
Yes, I will move
to
the
open.
motion.
Okay.
Second.
Okay,
So it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
yes.
Councilman McGinnis.
Just real quickly, what this is only a reconsideration of that last, of the ordinance that was passed in May of 2010 that has not been acted on at this point. And so all we're doing is asking, because there was a significant petitions, and it was deemed by the Lancaster County Commissioner at that time that there were signatures were all accepted, or enough signatures were accepted to put this referendum back to the city council, and we have the choice of either rescinding or putting it up to a vote of the people. So I am asking for this to be a rescission of that ordinance passed in 2010.
Is there any discussion? Any comments?
2012.
2012, May 4th.
Yeah.
May 14th, yes. That's
Oh,
when it
that's
was.
right.
Really close. Any comments?
It's old then.
Councilman Shob?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Mr. Christie, thank you for remaining. So, as read into the record, if the council decided not to rescind this, would we be required to pick a date today to put this on the ballot?
So I'm gonna give an answer. I'm gonna do the best that I can, and I will lead with, this in some ways is unprecedented. I can tell you that in 2004, there was referendum. The council did not repeal it, and they did select, at that time, they selected a date in the future it was around the same time, I think August, and they selected it for it to go on the ballot in November. Then, if you recall, the process is that then there must also be a resolution outlining the language and directing the clerk and directing that there be an executive order issued within a certain period of time. That resolution came later. Okay, so in the past, they did not repeal it, said we were going to put this on election later in the future, and then they came back with a resolution that was more specific. Okay, I will also just, I don't know that this has to be said, but this is from 10 years ago, and nothing happened for 10 years.
Few months.
Yeah, it's been a while, right? And so the language in the charter suggested that action would need to be taken to either repeal or place it on the ballot, and we're not doing that until today, 10 years later. I think that the precedent, I think I've kind of spelled it out for you, right?
Yes, thank you. I
If
appreciate it. That was helpful.
I hope I'm making sense. I mean, we haven't been in a situation where the council did not repeal it and did not put it to a vote, that we have not encountered that.
Councilwoman Raybold.
I do have some comments, and I can address both of the ordinances at the same time. And I think that's what you were asking all of us, just to comment once. I'm asking my colleagues to vote no on rescinding both the ordinances, because in effect it negates the efforts of so many for so many years to end discrimination for our LGBTQIA+ community, veterans, and people with disabilities. The process of enacting these ordinances reflects the efforts of so many in our community. The 2022 ordinance has been a lengthy and inclusive one of more than 2.5 years. Councilwoman Washington and others work with city law, city council members, informing and including stakeholders, as well as trans members and others from the LGBTQ community, listening and learning from other communities and developing a coalition and strategy to end this discrimination once and for all and bring real justice to a city like so many cities across the United States have done, including Omaha, now more than 10 years ago. In Omaha, there have been no incidents and no reported cases of sexual predators with no additional construction costs or modifications, as our opponents allege. We moved forward with this after discussions, and we had consensus with our colleagues and our mayor. It's thanks to the ACLU and out Nebraska, we were able to connect with the ACLUs in Anchorage, Alaska, and Boston, Massachusetts, to understand better what hardships and horrific lies our trans community would be subjected to, like those communities faced in Alaska and Massachusetts when they brought similar referendums and ordinances before their community. Several of my city council colleagues participated in those Zoom meetings. We followed their recommended steps and guidance that they used in their cities by preparing, by organizing, by hiring a campaign manager, fundraising, polling, and bringing deep canvassing efforts to Lincoln. All the while, including and listening to trans members in each of these steps. The tragic loss of Milo devastated everyone in these efforts, and we paused to allow everyone and so many to mourn his passing. I am deeply saddened that we have come to this point in time after tremendous outreach, coalition building, support from our community, and polling proof that the majority of Lincolnites favor equity and non-discrimination. To cave into the fearmongers and naysayers is demoralizing. To protect and celebrate our diversity is our duty as elected officials. To protect the vulnerable in our community that are marginalized for being different for who they are and who they love is our job. Robert F. Kennedy said, "Few will have the greatness to bend history itself, but each of us can work to change a small portion of events, and in that total of all those acts will be written the history of our generation. Each time a person stands up for an ideal or acts to improve the lots of others or strikes out against injustice, it sends forth a tiny ripple of hope, and crossing each other from a million centers of energy and daring, those ripples build a current that can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance." I respectfully ask and plead with my colleagues to vote no to rescind the ordinances. Voting to rescind is a tremendous and another devastating loss and setback for so many in our community who have suffered, who have hoped, and who have waited so patiently. Keeping these ordinances in place are that ripple of hope that strikes out against injustices that have no place in our hearts, in our laws, in our city, or in our state. The fight for equality has been long, and we will remain on the right side of history, fighting for people in marginalized communities who deserve fair treatment in all aspects of life. We remain committed to ensuring our city is inclusive and welcoming. It is Lincoln for all. Thank you.
Any other comments on items 8A? Councilwoman Raybold addressed both. You're welcome to do that, or on each item. Any other comments on 8A?
We'll get a chance to speak on.
Of course you
8B.
will.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
okay. Well, Councilman, I mean, I'm going to comment on 8A, but I.
8A.
Okay,
I'm
okay.
fine.
I am, I just want to say that I won't be voting to rescind 8A because my philosophy over the years has been to clean up old legislation, just have it off the books, and it has very much less to do with what Councilwoman Raybold eloquently and passionately described, but I think 10 years is long enough to carry it, and so for that reason, I'll be voting to rescind 8A, and I wanted to make that explanation. So are there any other comments before Councilman McGinnis? Do you want to close on that item, or are you good? Or?
Do you want to speak?
Just very quickly.
I'll let.
I'm gonna
Washington.
I'm gonna reserve most of my comments for the next item, but I cannot vote to rescind this item. I had said to my colleagues in the years leading up to this conversation today that I would only rescind this one once we had successfully passed a title expanding non-discrimination protections to everyone. And that has not happened, and I cannot vote to rescind.
Any other comment? Okay. Okay. All right. Let's move on.
Call the
Mm-hmm.
motion. Vote on the motion.
I can call the vote on the motion. Okay. Raybold?
No.
Washington?
No.
Schob?
Yes.
Beckius?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
Read 8B.
Motion carried 4-2.
5-2.
Me, 5-2. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Let's move on, please, to item 8B. Excuse me.
Item 8B is amending various provisions of Title 11 of the Lincoln Municipal Code, Equal Opportunity. Council must repeal this ordinance 21-21220, passed on February 14th, 2022 in its entirety, or placed on the ballot for vote of the citizens of Lincoln. Council must also select a date for a special election or general city election.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded by Councilman Bowers. Is there discussion on item 8B? Comments? Councilman Shob.
Now would be a time for me to
You
speak
bet,
on,
of
yes.
course.
This is long. I tried to still it down a little bit, but it's going to take a while. So get comfortable. This is going to take a minute. As most of you know, I grew up in Kentucky. Both my parents went to segregated schools. That was the way of life in Kentucky. I was a second-class citizen. My parents were second-class citizens. The Supreme Court in the Plessy versus Ferguson case and long enshrined Jim Crow laws in the South solidified my parents' second-class status in the country, where the Declaration of Independence stated that all men are created equal. The Supreme Court in the case of Brown versus the Board of Education legally ended school segregation, and the Civil Rights Act of 1964 addressed other issues of de jure segregation. My parents' civil rights were guaranteed under the law, thanks to the courts and legislation. However, if the civil rights of my parents had been put to a vote of the people in the South in the 60s, I am confident they would have been denied. When the votes of minority groups are put to the ballot and the majority groups get to vote on it, I am not confident that minority rights will be extended. I attended integrated schools. I learned to respect the rule of law. I watched how the law protected people and improved the lives of many. I also saw how the law was used to punish and disadvantage others. I was taught that there were legal methods to redress issues of injustice in our society when that happened. I continue to believe that's true. I also continue to believe that allowing one group to vote on the civil rights of another group is wrong. In June of 2020, I was happy to see the Supreme Court affirm the civil rights of the LGBTQ community through the Bostock and Clayton Court ruling versus Clayton County Court ruling. This ruling provided legal standing for individuals to file a complaint when they believe they have been discriminated against. It provided legal standing. In February of 2020, this body changed our municipal code to reflect the changes outlined in that Supreme Court decision, following the rule of law as laid out by the U.S. Supreme Court. Some members of our community disagreed with that decision and used the rights granted to them by the city's charter to challenge that code change. After gathering the required number of signatures, the enactment of that code was suspended. The rule of law now requires us as a council to, option 1, place that issue on a ballot for a vote of the people, a vote to grant or deny civil rights to members of our society, or option 2, rescind the ordinance as written. Between these two horrible choices, these are both extremely distasteful choices, I am going to choose to rescind. I was surprised to see so much opposition to a Supreme Court ruling. The Supreme Court is there to arbitrate our laws, and why so many people would disagree with it puzzles me to this day. I take responsibility for not working hard enough to explain this to my fellow Nebraskans. Today's action is effectively a reset back to February 22, a do-over, which will give me time to talk to the community, to explain the legal rights that the federal government grants the LGBTQ community residents of this city, this community, this state, and this country. Those rights have been granted. I will continue my commitment to protecting the rights of all ethnic minorities, all minority members in our community. That is important to me. That work starts today. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Who else would like to comment at this time on item 8B? Councilman Bowers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The LGBTQ community will continue to fight for equal protections for all residents of Lincoln. We will do this in a way that pushes forward equality while shielding our community from ongoing attacks on our freedom. We've seen what happens when we erase LGBTQ plus children from protections for their young lives to grow. Let's not make that mistake again. Let's not make the mistake of erasing children from the protection they trust us to provide them. The majority of attacks on Title XI or the Fairness Ordinance are based on lies and scare tactics against our transgender and non-binary community members. We must put transgender and non-binary voices at the center of next steps for Title 11 because transgender and non-binary individuals will be targeted by those whose actions create lifelong harm to our LGBTQ+ neighbors by halting progress of achieving protections, recognition, and the ability to come out of the closet just so that they can live their lives. The council has heard from several transgender and non-binary community leaders about how to proceed. And after conversations and some devastating losses in our community, the message has become clear to me, and that's we must rescind this ordinance, continue to strengthen our relationship with honest conversations, support, and acceptance, and move forward as a united community for all LGBTQ+ students, parents, peers, and for our allies. We will achieve a day when the LGBTQ+ community receives full and equal protections, where we can have the same opportunity as every other Nebraskan to work, live, and raise our families. That will be the win. The win is not just putting it on a ballot, regardless if it'll win or lose. The win is not putting it to a vote, our rights to a majority vote. The win is not simply passing it by the council where it'll sit in limbo for 10 years or become unenforceable. The win is where we successfully bring this into reality. Having a goal of anything short of that is about hitting a milestone and not about long-lasting change and protection for the LGBTQ+ community in the next generation. We will win this when we have the ability and resources to counteract the lies and scare tactics from those whose actions intentionally or unintentionally create lifelong harm. I remember growing up gay and being afraid to tell anyone, and being even more afraid that I was going to spend an eternity in hell because of how I was born. I used to pray to God to undo my birth because not even being born seemed like the best outcome in comparison to what the messages and narrative was all around me about what my destiny was going to be. Pain, torture, and suffering without end. I received these messages by adults, leaders, and the community around me, not by my own relationship with God. I was lucky. I grew older. I was able to create a life of love, acceptance, and family. I made it. I barely made it, but I was one of the lucky ones. I made it, but there's many of us who do not, and there are many of us who still will not, that will struggle with the lies and scare tactics around them. There are many of us who will not make it. If we do not have the resources or ability to fight these lies and scare tactics, very similar to what we grew up with, then we add to the creation of lifelong harm, either intentionally or unintentionally. We won't be reckless. We will continue to push forward equality while shielding our community from ongoing attacks on freedom. We will tell the transgender, non-binary community that their voices matter. The LGBT community, our city, and this council will not give up the fight towards full equality. This is just the next step till that one beautiful day when these protections become codified in law and when all LGBTQ+ adults and kids see this world as equally theirs.
Councilman Beckius, would you like to share next?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm voting to rescind the updates to Title 11 today, not because I don't believe in the good work and updates of them, but because I do not believe there is a path forward to victory at the ballot box at this time. I want to use my time today for a couple of brief comments. First, to thank the many citizens and organizations and community partners that agree that Title 11 should be updated. I appreciate their support and their good work and their willingness to stand alongside marginalized communities to make Lincoln great for all. Lincoln is strongest when everyone is encouraged to reach their full potential. I would also just like to take a moment to remind folks that protections will continue after today. The Supreme Court held laws that prohibit sex discrimination prohibit discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity as well. as long as laws do not contain indications to the contrary. The Lincoln Commission on Human Rights will continue to enforce prohibition of discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity in the areas of housing, employment, and public accommodations. The outcome of today's vote is that our municipal code will not be updated, not that our citizens will not be afforded protections as they are offered today. As Councilman Shob mentioned, the work to codify protections into Lincoln Municipal Code does not stop today. For Lincoln to continue to be a high quality and attractive city, the work must not stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Washington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Crafting remarks for today's session has not been easy, clouded as I've been by disappointment, but the task of speaking truth is always simple. Today we have before us a motion to repeal Title 11 rather than let it go to referendum. Tonight, for different reasons and from different political ideologies, my colleagues and the constituents they represent would like to stall current efforts to change our municipal code and extend equal rights to everyone in Lincoln. I cannot cast a vote in that direction. I believe the moral foundation of our country's Constitution is in the Declaration of Independence and its principle of equal rights, and I believe the overwhelming majority of Lincolnites believe the same. And I also know that there are some who would put parameters on this basic precept, others who believe that there should be limits on who is included in the phrase, all are created equal. As my fellow councilman noted, the Supreme Court ruled in June 2020 that to fire someone simply for being homosexual or transgendered is discrimination on the basis of sex. And this is what fired up the initial opposition. Their moral outrage about gay, lesbian, and transgendered people and their desire to narrow who is included in the phrase, all are created equal. Lost in many of these conversations are the other critical and necessary updates to Title 11 that would have extended employment and housing protections to active duty military and veterans, the addition of hair texture and hairstyles within the definition of race that would have been protected in the workplace, and a greater alignment with the Americans with Disabilities Act that would have ensured a greater degree of safety for individuals with disabilities as they access housing and public accommodations. As maddeningly as the opposition from the religiously and politically conservative on the right has been, it is the opposition from the left which disappoints me. The struggle for civil rights has been a long journey. Each generation has had to grapple with moving us closer to that goal at all levels, local, state, and federal. And each generation has had to remain vigilant that once acquired, our rights are not allowed to be chipped away. Today, you with whom I share much commonality are asking that we step back and wait for a more perfect time, a more perfect circumstance. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in his letter from a Birmingham jail discussed the similar conundrum of those he would see as allies who wrote to him, "I agree with you, Dr. King, in goal, but I cannot agree with your methods." And they advised him to delay action for a more convenient season. And this might be how it winds up tonight. But the journey toward the promise was never guaranteed to be easy or short or convenient. To the upcoming generations, to the youth of our city, I want you to know, I see you. I have been where you stand now, and I promise you, it will get better. I will continue to advocate for the full inclusion of all because I believe in the promise of the Constitution, its promise of equal rights and equal protection. Our work is not yet done, and I have not lost hope. Lincoln is a great community with a history of welcoming the immigrant and refugee, for celebrating diversity and our shared commitment to caring for neighbors. All of this gives me the strength to know that I will not be derailed. Our work is not yet done. I hope, though it is difficult, that neither you or I have lost our ability to hope.
Thank you, Councilwoman Washington. Councilman McGinnis, before you close, would you mind if I read my statement? Then
No, go ahead.
Then we'll have you close, and I think everyone has had an opportunity at that point. This is a hard day for everyone, and I know that. I'm voting against this item to rescind, but I want you all to know some more reasons why. Defeatism is not a strategy. It's been used in this issue, around this issue, for a reason not to proceed with putting this on the ballot. Time and time again, we have heard we can't do this because we're not going to win. This defies all logic. I have strongly rejected this notion from day one. This underestimates our community and the voters of the city to do the right thing. I want to ask you all to think about the consequences of what if Martin Luther King or John F. Kennedy would have not taken their actions as leaders if they had been afraid of losing, or afraid of their people being hurt or damaged. What if Rosa Parks would have gotten off the bus? No one has been able to explain to me why the fear of losing has been a strategy when 65 miles down the road in Omaha, as somebody mentioned, I think Councilwoman Raybould, over 10 years ago, their city council was able to pass a fairness ordinance. With no defeatism getting in their way. No one has had this answered. No one has been able to tell me that. No tragedies have followed as an unforeseen outcome. None. Yet here we are. There is no perfect time to do this. This is not democracy. Here's another reason. Another constituent wrote to all of us this morning and said, this is 2022. It's not 1982. I have been and will always continue to be an ally to all of the gay community. I will be frustrated and I will be very sad today if this vote to rescind is passed. And I know many will continue to not be protected in our community as a result of that action today. Lincoln is better than this. But I, like others, are not going to give up the fight. And I just want to say, lastly, I see this as a call to action to this council and to me to be good leaders who are not divided amongst ourselves. We need to stay positive. We need to encourage respect for everyone, everywhere, and we need to stay hopeful, and we need to stay steadfast. We're not going away. The example of being civil and being kind begins with each one of us. So with that, Councilman McGinnis, would you like to close?
Just real quick, I didn't have a nice speech written out or anything. And as everybody knows, or what has been said in the past, is the reason I brought this forward was just because of the divisiveness I feel in the community on this issue. And so I don't believe now would be the good time to bring this forward. I really, really appreciate my other council members and what they've said. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear a lot of what you have said. I like what Benny said. It's time we do a little better job of educating and get the word out, because I believe there is a Title 11 process that we can go through, that we can get to as a community as a whole. And that's what I would like to do if we rescind this. And I'll be one there to help work on it.
Thank you for that. So we have a motion and a second, which I believe was by Councilman Bowers. Okay, all right, very good. Madam Clerk, could you please call the motion on item 8B to rescind?
Raybould?
No.
Washington?
No.
Schob?
Yes.
Beckius?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Ward?
No.
Motion carried 4-3.
Okay. We can move on, Madam Clerk.
That concludes section 8. We move on to section 9, resolutions first readings, or items 9A through 9D. Ordinance first reading is item 10A, and our pending list is item 11A.
We do have public comment this evening. Anyone wishing to address the council on a matter not on this agenda and not planned to appear on a future agenda may do so at this time. You're allowed 5 minutes to speak regardless of the number of topics. And tonight is that time, so welcome.
Thank you.
You waited a long time today.
Well, it's getting to be budget season again, and so you're going to see some more of me. Fortunately, you only get to see about 5 minutes of me tonight. Each of you has in front of you 3 petitions. These are petitions that are signed by Lincoln residents. There is substantial support for a good transportation system here in Lincoln. And that support comes both from people that ride the bus and those that do not ride the bus. In order for us to be a great city, we need to have an excellent StarTran transportation system. And I would indicate to you that on the petition that we're urging you to get a new terminal transfer facility, we collected 783 signatures. On the question of whether we continue the zero fare or fare free, we collected 872 signatures. On the petition to restore the frequency on 5 bus routes where they cut the morning and evening service, to restore that, there were 677 signatures. And that comes to a total of 2,432 people. Unfortunately, we're in the midst of doing the TDP update this year. Unfortunately, that has not gone smoothly. I went through that about 5 years ago, and at this point in time, we had narrowed a bunch of alternatives down to a single alternative to present to the StarTran Advisory Board and the City Council. And at this point in time, we're lagging far behind. So you're going into budget season without the benefit of hearing what the consultants are coming up with. I'm not happy with the announcement that was in the Sunday paper that we're going to start charging fares again. This is exactly the wrong time for that to happen. And I say that, as you all know, because of the price of gasoline. If we start charging fares again, we're going to hurt a whole bunch of people. I've talked to riders on the bus, and we have riders riding on the bus now, and they say they're riding on the bus because, unfortunately, they can't afford to put gasoline in their car. And then we also have a flood of people from Afghanistan and from Ukraine and from other countries. These people, it takes them 1.5 years to get a valid Nebraska driver's license. We need a good transportation system so they can get around. We have all these programs, state and city, to train people to work at jobs. But I put it to you that this won't do a bit of good unless we have a good transportation system so those people can get to and from work. So as you deliberate about the budget and as you think about StarTran, I'm asking you to realize that what the mayor has proposed is kind of a maintain the steady course type budget. We need an influx of investment in StarTran for it to work. We're faced with a situation where the Golds building is going to force the buses away from there because the developer needs that sidewalk space to do what he needs to do. We need an interim terminal transfer facility, and if we get a new facility,
1 minute.
I'm told by StarTran that it will be at least 5 years from the date we get approval of the grant until the new facility can be built. We need a place for those people to go to change buses. So there are some real important, vital issues facing the council. And Chairman Ward, I will tell you that I'm not happy with the bus service that goes out to your Fallbrook area. We need to do some revisions with that, and that's going to cost money. And the council needs to be willing to appropriate that money in order for it to happen. I think I pretty much told you what I intended to tell you. I hope you'll look at the petitions. I hope it will be interesting to you to see the variety of people that signed those petitions. I would make this offer. It's awfully hard, it seems to me, to deal with all the Star Trans stuff at a regular council meeting. And I would be willing personally to come to any sort of a pre-council session or a special meeting or something and really haste the Star Trans stuff through with you. So you got my phone number, and give me a call if you'd like to do that. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
Could I have you state your name and address, sir? Sorry.
Yes.
Could you restate your name and address for me, please?
Yes,
for the record?
I will. Richard, common spelling, last name is Schmeling, S-C-H-M-E-L-I-N-G.
Thank you.
My address, 2601 South 58th Street, apartment 17, Lincoln, Nebraska 68506. And you got my phone number on your sign-in sheet here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to come on forward, testify this evening?
Hello, good evening. My name's Casey Ogle, and I'm the staff attorney for Collective Impact Lincoln, which is a partnership between Nebraska Appleseed and Civic Nebraska. CIL works with residents of 6 Lincoln neighborhoods to build community, develop neighborhood leaders, and take action on policy that's responsive to their needs. CIL advocates for better housing quality, more affordable housing, and fair rental practices for low-paid Lincolnites. Our work is rooted in the community. Over the years, we've talked to tens of thousands of Lincolnites, learning from them about the needs of our community. And it's because we've heard from the community members who struggle to find housing that will accept their housing vouchers that I'm here today to talk to you about banning source of income discrimination. As the law in Lincoln currently stands, prospective tenants can be turned away from rental units simply because of the way they would pay their rent, for example, by paying with a housing voucher. Source of income protections would end this practice and prevent landlords from discriminating against prospective tenants on the basis of their source of income. Ending source of income discrimination is essential for recipients of public housing assistance. Housing choice vouchers are a critical tool in helping low-income families establish stability and escape the cycle of poverty. But right now, Lincoln offers no protection to these families, allowing landlords to impose unfair conditions or outright refuse to rent to them. Recipients of public housing assistance usually have to wait a number of years to receive assistance. Between 1 and 3 years. They must pass background checks, and they have to have a proven track record of being good renters. But despite these strict safeguards, nearly 1 in 3 voucher recipients in Lincoln lose their benefits before they're able to find a home to rent. However, studies have shown that housing voucher recipients are 12% more likely to successfully use their voucher in a jurisdiction that has ended source of income discrimination than in a jurisdiction that allows such discrimination. That means that if Lincoln were to ban source of income discrimination, we could essentially cut Lincoln's voucher failure rate in half. You can see source of income discrimination easily demonstrated if you look for rental listings. Frequently, landlords will put in housing advertisements, no Section 8 or housing vouchers not accepted. And while those who are seeking to utilize a housing voucher might be the example you hear the most, source of income discrimination isn't just used against recipients of public housing assistance. It's also used to deny housing to those living on other benefits like Social Security or disability, Veterans Affairs supportive housing vouchers, single moms who rely on child support payments, and even hourly workers without a guaranteed monthly salary. The lack of source of income protections impacts many of those in Lincoln who are struggling most to make ends meet as prices continue to rise. Source of income discrimination also allows landlords to engage in the worst kinds of racial discrimination, refusing to rent properties in desirable areas to minorities while blaming their decision on economic factors rather than race. And statistics prove that this tactic disproportionately impacts Black and Latino renters. Ending source of income discrimination would make Lincoln a more inclusive city and reduce segregation in our community. States, counties, and cities across the country have outlawed source of income discrimination without any negative impacts on property values or community safety. As of January of this year, 20 different states, including the District of Columbia, and 115 local jurisdictions have outlawed source of income discrimination. Included in that list is St. Louis, Pittsburgh, Tucson, Daytona Beach, Atlanta, Cincinnati, and Memphis, among many others. This is a common sense reform that would help protect thousands of local families without any cost to responsible property owners or local community. Lincoln needs and deserves these protections. The community is asking for this body to pass an ordinance to ensure community members can better afford the rising cost of housing, and we at CIL, thank you, stand ready to help in any of those efforts. And that's it.
Perfect timing.
Thank you so much, Casey, for coming again. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you very much. Oh, Councilman Shope?
No, that was a thank you.
Oh, very nice.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council this evening? Okay, no? Nope. Oh, Mr. Helm? Please come forward.
Thank you. Roy Helm. I identify with the pronouns of he and him. I live at 2750 South 13th Street, which is Otoe, Missouri, and Pawnee Land. I was hoping that there might be an opportunity for some reconsideration, since we're doing a little reconsideration these days, of the rezoning at Pioneer and Highway 77. I think there would be room for at least compromise on allowing a larger setback to the development, to provide a little more space and sanctuary for the prayer camp. Excuse me, I think excuse me. I think we owe it to that part of our society that has been so marginalized over the years, and we continue to do so, and it is painful, and but I don't think that everything is lost. I think there still are opportunities, and that's why I'm here to ask for your assistance and your consideration. I know that there's an opportunity to contact Manzita Brothers and the Archdiocese to also ask for their support in either modifying or giving up on the plan. But I haven't given up hope, and although I feel a little more hopeless today after some actions taken, I am disappointed, but I'm not angry. And again, I find myself in a position of offering forgiveness and hope that the resolve will be there to ensure that all sections and sectors of our community are protected equally and treated equally. It is something that I've come to appreciate more and more about Lincoln, especially once we get outside of the city limits. It's a very different environment that we live in socially and politically. And I have always thought of Lincoln as being a true sanctuary in this state. And I hope that it continues to be so, and I hope that you all will be working in that direction. And by some of your statements, we will be holding your feet to the fire to ensure that this city does treat everyone equally, and that this is a fair place for all to live, and regardless of race or gender bias or income. or situation. This needs to be a warm and welcome place, and I'm just taking a little bit back to this evening, but life does go on, and the struggle continues, and we must persevere, and we will. So I do appreciate your hard work. I know it was you make difficult decisions, and I do appreciate that. So thank you very much, and have a safe, cool evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there, excuse me, any other persons that would like to comment yet this evening? Seeing none.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded by Rabel or McGinnis to adjourn. Please call the roll.
Washington,
Yes.
Rabel,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes,
Motion carried 7-0.
we are adjourned.